Hey everyone, Firescale Audiobooks here. If there's a novel you'd love to hear more of, you can support us on Patreon or Ko-fi. Depending on your tier, I'll make extra parts just for the stories you're most excited about. Usually I can only upload 4 to 5 parts of each novel, but with your support, we can go beyond that. And of course, don't forget to hit subscribe. It helps more than you know.
Shiraishi smelled the odor on himself and felt like vomiting. What kind of fart smell is coming from inside this eel? Just now, after Shiraishi was swallowed by the eel, it didn't actually cause him any harm. Instead, he seized the opportunity and rushed out directly from the most vulnerable part of his body. It was a severe blow to some extent. As Shiraishi thought this to himself, he then noticed that the atmosphere was a bit strange. Doraemon, Nobita, Giant, and Sunio all stared at him blankly. Nobita, Giant, and Sunio are all right. Doraemon is carrying a bomb. Holy crap, I think I just heard something. Earth-destroying bomb. No ways, Doraemon's. Shiraishi's eye twitched slightly. He almost screamed when he saw Doraemon casually throw the Earth-destroying bomb on the ground. Are you kidding me, Doraemon? You can't just throw this thing away like that. However, before Shiraishi could say anything, he was surrounded. Cousin Shiraishi, are you all right? Cousin Shiraishi, you're amazing. They managed to break through like that. I knew my cousin Shiraishi would be all right. The children's faces were filled with surprise, and you could even see faint traces of tears. Shiraishi felt a warmth in his heart, knowing that they were all acting this way because of him. Okay, I'm definitely fine, there's nothing wrong with me at all. Baishi comforted him, that guy is still alive. We need to make arrangements for this big guy quickly, otherwise it will be even more difficult to deal with later. No problems. The group of friends looked at each other and nodded in unison. Even though Shiraishi is alright now, what just happened still makes his friends want to kill that eel and turn it into a giant eel rice bowl. Go to hell. Next up, Doraemon, Nobita, Giant, and Sunio will be there to assist. Shiraishi will be the main attacker. Find the gap in the rigidity. Shiraishi rushed forward immediately. Using his speed and strength, he pierced through the eel in an instant. Immediately afterwards, Baishi rushed out 100 meters away, turned around again, and pierced through once more. After repeating this process several times, many holes appeared on the eel's body. It went from being fierce at the beginning to being on its last legs, lying on the ground, its body only occasionally trembling, right under everyone's noses. The moray eel lost its life force, and at the same time, some of the instruments on its body fell to the ground and slowly shrank. I knew it, even at the bottom of the sea, there couldn't be such a big eel. Sunio stared in amazement at the shrunken eel. Is the stuff that fell off its body what caused it to grow bigger? Maybe someone is raising these monsters on the seabed. Fat Tiger crossed his arms and snorted. If I find out, I'll definitely beat him to death. Shiraishi stared silently at the device, some plot points slowly taking shape in his mind. Mermaids, monster fish. Cousin Shiraishi, that was really dangerous just now. We all thought you were dead. Doraemon patted his chest in lingering fear. Yes, Cousin Shiraishi. The friends gathered around again. Never mind that, Doraemon, please put away your Earth destruction bomb first. Shiraishi stared at the Earth-destroying bomb that had fallen to the ground, his lips twitching wildly. He didn't know whether to be moved or terrified. Where did Doraemon go, who claimed a few days ago to be a childcare robot and wouldn't have dangerous items like swords? You're going to pull out an Earth-destroying bomb with your bare hands, huh? Shiraishi has no doubt that this Earth destruction bomb can destroy the Earth. His only concern is that if Doraemon is reliable, what if he accidentally touches it and it explodes? Baishi couldn't withstand the power of the planet's explosion. He had only been in the world for a short time and had already gained so many abilities, he didn't want to die so soon. Ah, I almost forgot. Doraemon slapped his forehead, awkwardly swam underground, and stuffed the Earth destruction bullet back into his four-dimensional magic pocket. Is this okay now? Shiraishi breathed a sigh of relief. Yes, absolutely. The group of friends expressed their concerns about Shiraishi, saying that what had just happened was extremely dangerous. Just then, several fish-shaped submarines sailed in from various places and surrounded the group in the blink of an eye. At the same time, many mermaid soldiers dressed in the same uniform and carrying spears or guns swam in. What's going on? Doraemon and the others watched this scene with puzzlement, but they had a feeling that the newcomers were up to no good, so the group of friends gathered together and watched them warily. At the same time, a small yellow figure resembling a pufferfish with a spiky hairstyle swam over. Yes, it is indeed Harry, the captain of the Merfolk's Guard. Harry walked up to the group, crossed his arms, and scanned them with a scrutinizing and disgusted look. Blue fat pufferfish, are you the guys Princess Sophia was talking about? What? Doryman was once again mistaken for a pufferfish, and he almost rushed up to fight Harry, but Nobita stopped him. Doryman, don't do this, don't do this. These mermaids know Sophia, they're our friends. I'm so angry, even if she's Sophia's friend, she can't call me a pufferfish. Doryman, furious, put his hands on his hips. Hey Doryman, actually calling you a pufferfish isn't wrong, because you really look just like one. Fat Tiger couldn't help but laugh out loud. What giant, what are you saying? Seeing them making a ruckus, little Harry frowned. Quiet down. Although it looks small, its long-standing high position has instilled in it a sense of authority. As soon as he said that, everyone fell silent. HMPH, it seems you really are the people Princess Sophia was talking about. Harry snorted. Everyone had a bad feeling. I have a feeling that this mermaid harbors some inexplicable hostility towards them. Nobita was the only one who hadn't reacted yet. He stretched out his hand and said, "What's your name?" "We're Sophia's good friends. My name is Nobita." Snored. Harry snorted again, swam back a short distance, and looked down at everyone. "I am now arresting you for kidnapping." "What kidnapping?" "Oh, this is crime. Abduction. Abducted whom?" The other children were completely bewildered, not understanding what was going on, and stared blankly at little Harry. "Of course it's Her Highness the Princess." "Are you kidding me? How could we possibly have kidnapped Sophia?" Hearing this, the friends were a little angry. However, little Harry is a predator knight. At his command, the fish-shaped ship next to him fired a laser beam, which transformed into a fish-shaped bottle and put Doryman, Nobita, Giant, and Sunio inside. The bottle was very small, and 4 people squeezed together, their faces pressed against it, which was very uncomfortable. "It hurts so much, let us go." "You despicable B*********************************************************************************************************************************************************************************************************************************************************************************************************************************************************************************************** ambushed by you. Little Harry looked at them coldly and snorted, "Take them back." These presumptuous kidnappers, how ridiculous. Watching them leave, Baishi, who was hiding on the reef, silently followed. He had already sensed something was wrong. These guys clearly didn't come with good intentions. Otherwise, they wouldn't have surrounded everyone so quickly. So when he found an opportunity, he darted to the side and hid. It wasn't that he didn't want his friends to come along, but he had no other choice. Only by staying free could he save them. "I'm afraid you'll have to make do for now, Doryman." Following behind these submarines, Shiro swam past a very old ruin, then through a passage, and upstream he arrived at a huge cave. Shiraishi wanted to continue following the submarine, but it quickly disappeared. He could only surface and steal a glance at what was happening inside. This is a completely different world. It has all kinds of buildings and land. Mermaids are mostly like Sophia. They don't actually live in the water all the time, but spend most of their time on land. And the most luxurious of these buildings is, this is the palace. Whether we want to rescue Doryman or something else, it seems we have to go find Sophia. Shiraishi took a deep look at the palace, and after confirming its approximate location, he dived back into the water and shot towards the land where the palace was located. He reached the shore, pressed the button on his waist to restore his legs, stepped onto land, and then rushed towards the interior of the palace. The imperial palace was naturally heavily guarded. They were basically mermaid soldiers wearing mermaid suits and with legs. The weapons were firearms and stone spears. With such advanced technology, why are we still using stonemasons? Baishi shook his head, somewhat speechless. Although these stone spears seemed to be able to shoot light, that did not stop him from criticizing these people's nostalgia. Just like Wakanda, Baishi quietly slipped past the mermaid soldiers' patrols and infiltrated the palace. The palace is very large. It would take a long time to search room by room. He doesn't have that much time to search. What if Doryman and the others can't hold on? Moreover, searching room by room makes it particularly easy to be discovered. A patrol of soldiers walked by. Seizing the opportunity, Shiraishi kidnapped the last soldier in the group, forced him to reveal the location of the princess's palace, then knocked him unconscious with a single chop and placed him in a corner. He then headed towards the location he had been asked about. As they approached the palace, Shiraishi seemed to faintly hear a melodious song coming from within, seemingly mixed with a touch of sadness. The closer you get, the clearer the sound becomes. It's Sophia. That merman soldier was honest, he didn't lie. Standing in front of the palace gate, Shiraishi mentally prepared himself slightly, then stretched out his large hand, revealing a pile of things. "Who?" The sound of the palace gate being pushed open abruptly stopped the singing. A young girl sitting in front of her dressing table, feeling sad, turned around and immediately saw the person she had been longing for. His expression quickly changed from sadness to surprise, and he abruptly stood up. Shiraishi. Shiraishi looked at the girl in front of him, his lips twitching slightly. "It's me." "It really is you." Sophia's eyes were filled with joy, but it quickly dimmed. But Shiraishi, you shouldn't be here now. I'm here for two reasons. First, I want to find out why you left without saying goodbye. Shiraishi didn't say much. Although he already had a guess in his mind, Shiraishi wanted to ask Sophia himself. Sophia glanced at Shiraishi, exhaled, and said, "Actually, everyone should be able to guess it. I may guess, but I definitely want to hear you say it yourself." Shiraishi continued. "After spending a few days together, I realized that I really like you." Sophia glanced at Shiraishi. For a child her age, there seemed to be no taboo about liking someone, only a hint of shyness, but we're not of the same race. "I'm a mermaid and you're human. My grandmother definitely won't approve." By the end, Sophia's expression had become very serious. It's really hard to believe that a teenager would say something like that with that expression. Shiraishi wanted to laugh, but he knew Sophia was serious, so he forcibly covered his mouth to stop himself from laughing out loud. "These are not problems. As long as we like each other, nothing is a problem. My grandmother would think it's a problem." Sophia had barely finished speaking. A woman with an elegant and graceful appearance, though aged, walked in. The crow's feet at the corners of her eyes could not conceal her former stunning beauty. Shiraishi and Sophia were both startled and turned to look. Sophia immediately lowered her head. "Sophia." The woman glanced at Shiraishi and Sophia and slowly said, "I know you haven't been back for long, but you haven't been in a good mood since you came back. I thought you had suffered some injustice outside, but now it seems that it must be because of this child." The woman looked at Shiraishi with a scrutinizing gaze. His eyes still showed obvious displeasure. "Are you kidding me? Anyone would find it unbearable if their own granddaughter, a teenager, suddenly fell in love with a boy. Women are slightly better off. If it is Sophia's father, they might even tear Shiraishi to shreds. This is not something that cannot be understood." Shiraishi felt a chill run down his spine from that gaze and couldn't help but lower his head. His lips twitched slightly. He seemed to know who the woman in front of him was. Sophia's lips twitched, unsure of what to say. Yes, this woman is Sophia's grandmother, Undine. Undine glanced at Shiraishi, temporarily ignoring Sophia. "Child, what's your name?" Shiraishi hesitated for a moment. "Shiraishi, no by Shiraishi." Undine nodded and said, "Shiraishi, a very nice name. You probably know that Sophia likes you, right?" "Of course I know." Shiraishi nodded without hesitation. "So do you like Sophia?" Undine smiled. "Of course I like it." Shiraishi nodded again without the slightest hesitation. This attitude changed Undine's opinion of him somewhat. At least he wasn't a complete jerk. "Logically speaking, you two are young but in love. As an elder, I shouldn't stop you. I wish you were a mermaid." Undine's words were initially filled with emotion, and it seemed she intended to help Shiraishi and Sophia get together. Sophia's face was almost beaming with a smile, but she quickly changed the subject. "Child, you are very smart. I think you should understand that there are differences between races which makes it impossible. Sophia is a mermaid while you are a land person." Sophia's face suddenly turned pale. She knew this would happen. She couldn't help but lower her head again, her lips moving, not knowing what to say. "Is that all?" On the other hand, Shiraishi had an indifferent expression. "Oh, isn't this enough for me to stop the two of you?" Undine suddenly became interested. The Shiraishi in front of me doesn't act like a 10-year-old child at all. This made her more interested in talking to him about these things. If it were any other 10-year-old, she would have chased them away long ago and wouldn't be talking about these things. "This is absolutely no reason to stop Sophia and me. Bai," she argued logically, "what's the difference between humans and mermaids? There are only two differences. One of them is that mermaids can breathe in the sea, while humans cannot. Your Majesty, do you think this can be a reason to stop Sophia and me? Isn't that enough?" Undine countered with a question. "Your Majesty, I am asking you questions, not the other way around." Shiraishi first casually put Undine at a disadvantage, then immediately added, "This is nothing to worry about." "Why isn't this something to worry about? What would you do if Sophia needed water when you were together?" Undine chuckled, unconcerned about Shiraishi's offense, and asked again. This time, Shiraishi ignored Undine's rhetorical question and instead smiled triumphantly. "Currently, the total area of the Earth is approximately 510.072 million square kilometers, of which the oceans alone account for 361.132 million square kilometers, and the land area is 148.94 million square kilometers. In other words, the ocean covers 70.8% of the Earth's surface, of which only 29.2% is land, and the remaining 70.8% is water. According to this theory, Sophia should be worried about whether I will suffocate, rather than me worrying about what will happen to Sophia if she runs out of water. She spoke eloquently. I don't care about this at all, so why do you all think it's something that needs to be discussed? Although it's a little crooked, but it is indeed just as Shiraishi said. Water covers a much larger area of the Earth's surface than land. Why are you worried about Sophia not having water instead of me suffocating? Shouldn't this be something I should be considering? I don't care, so why are you so concerned? You know a lot which is beyond my expectations. Undine was taken aback by Shiraishi's theory, then chuckled and said, "Not bad, I'm starting to get interested in you. Okay, then I agree with you. But is there a second reason? Your Majesty, there are many more things I have done that will surprise you. Secondly, the reason you want to stop me and Sophia is simply because of one of the most important differences between mermaids and humans. Mermaids are fish and humans are humans." She smiled slightly. "However, you are not the traditional mermaid race. To put it bluntly, you can only become mermaids by wearing mermaid suits. Especially for your royal family, don't forget, I also have a mermaid suit now and can also become a mermaid. Apart from the difference of breathing underwater, there is no difference between mermaids and mermaids. Sophia and the others aren't the kind of mermaids who only have fishtails." Undine's smile gradually faded. She was silent for a moment, then smiled again, her eyes filled with admiration as she looked at Shiraishi. "Child, you're amazing. I'm almost convinced. It seems that what you said is true. All those reasons you gave for not being able to be with Sophia are utterly untenable. If I said I didn't agree, that would be a lie, and it would change how Sophia viewed me. I wouldn't do such a thing. So I'm simply stopping you from Sophia's grandmother's perspective. I've only just met you and don't know you well, so I can't let you and Sophia be together for the time being. Are you satisfied with this reason? Can you find any other reason to refute it?" Upon hearing this, Shiraishi's lips twitched slightly. Looking at Undine's smiling expression, he felt that this woman was mocking him. "Well, so he just wants to stop me and Sophia." She was slightly speechless. "I can't find a reason to refute it." "It's good that we can't find it." Undine's face. Her smile became even brighter. Shiraishi's eye also twitched. However, he could actually understand Undine's thoughts. Judging from her expression, she had actually agreed with Shiraishi's statement. However, as the current queen of the merfolk, she cannot be so easily persuaded by a child. Wouldn't Her Majesty the Queen lose face? Therefore, we must find another angle. I'm not rejecting you for any particular reason, I'm just rejecting you for the sake of rejecting you. Women's damn competitiveness. Undine suddenly changed the subject. "But I don't mind you two spending some time together so you can stay here a little longer. It's my way of showing courtesy to Sophia's friend." Shiraishi breathed a sigh of relief. "No problem, thank you very much, Your Majesty." He was genuinely afraid that Undine would kick him out right now. Wouldn't that make things very difficult? They either lose face in front of Sophia or they have no choice but to rebel. Neither approach is appealing. "No need to thank me. After all, you are a friend of our princess, aren't you?" Undine chuckled at 30 and left, leaving Shiraishi to have some fun there. ***. Seeing Undine leave, Sophia finally breathed a sigh of relief. "Shiraishi, you have no idea how scared I was just now, afraid that grandmother would drive you away." "Drive them away, that's not necessary." She shook his head. "You could even say that what you're worried about is no longer a problem for your grandmother." What's not a problem?" Sophia paused for a moment, then said, "Didn't grandmother say she didn't approve of our relationship?" At this point, Sophia blushed slightly. Even if you don't know what dating means, it's still embarrassing. Seeing that Sophia couldn't understand the confrontation between him and Undine, Shiraishi smiled slightly and began to explain it to Sophie. At this very moment on the other side, Undine emerged from Sophia's chambers. Soon, a merman soldier came up and whispered some things to Undine. A glint of something unreadable flashed in Undine's eyes. She was wondering about that just now. Why is Shiraishi just an ordinary person? They were able to pass through the numerous mermaid soldiers and enter Sophia's palace. I thought it was Sophia who helped. But now it seems that it wasn't Sophia who helped, and it's even possible that Sophia didn't know about it. He infiltrated entirely on his own. Undine glanced into the distance, where two merman soldiers were supporting a merman soldier who looked like he had just woken up, was dazed, and was grimacing while clutching his neck. "Take him to see a doctor, and while you're at it, double his salary this month." Undine became more interested in Shiraishi. The last bit of resistance I had towards Shiraishi completely turned into a thirst for knowledge. I really wanted to know what secrets this kid Shiraishi was hiding. In Sophia's palace. After Shiraishi's explanation, they finally understood what the conversation between the two of them had meant. "Shiraishi, you're amazing." Sophia looked at Shiraishi with admiration. If Undine knew that Sophia was so biased towards outsiders, she would definitely completely change her impression of Shiraishi. The evaluation of Shiraishi would also become the brat who kidnapped his own granddaughter. Shiraishi chuckled, "If I weren't amazing, you wouldn't like me, right?" Um, this time, Sophia didn't blush. She nodded seriously and then changed the subject. "But Shiraishi, where are Doryman and the others? Why haven't I seen them? Have they gone home?" Shiraishi's expression suddenly froze and he slapped his forehead. "Oh no," Shiraishi gasped, his lips and eyes twitching violently. "Oh no, oh no, oh no." He had initially intended to listen to Sophia's explanation. He immediately took Sophia to rescue Doryman and the others. Unexpectedly, Lena's grandmother, Undine, arrived later. As they talked, they got so engrossed in the conversation that they completely forgot about Doryman and the others. "What happened?" Sophia sensed that something was amiss and asked with some confusion, "Don't you want to know my second purpose for coming here?" "The second objective is that Doryman has been captured by your guard captain on charges of kidnapping, and he's about to be executed. I want you, as the princess, to rescue him 10 times. Shiraishi immediately recounted all of his and his friend's experiences along the way to Sophia in the most concise way possible. When I heard about the giant eel, Sophia's expression changed slightly. That was so close. Without a second thought, she immediately grabbed Baishi's hand and began examining his wound. "Baishi, are you all right? Do I look like something's wrong right now?" Shiraishi quickly grabbed Sophia's small hand. "If I had something to do, I wouldn't have been able to come here. Now is not the time to talk about this kind of thing." He quickly told Sophia what happened next. Little Harry. Based on Shiraishi's description, Sophia immediately thought of the captain of the mermaid's guard. "White Stone, come with me quickly. I know where Harry and the others are right now. If we don't come now, it'll be too late." Sophia led him out of the room. But soon, Shiraishi and Sophia switched roles and he picked Sophia up in a princess carry. "Sophia, tell me where we are, I'm much faster than you." Although Sophia was a little shy, she knew this wasn't the time for such things, so she quickly gave Shiraishi directions. With a position secured, Shiraishi immediately unleashed unprecedented speed. Facing the 4 or 5 meter high wall, he planted his feet on the ground, leaped up and flipped over. Sophia experienced what it felt like to fly. Right now. Little Harry is already leading the merfolk soldiers. They brought Doryman and the others to the house where the execution was carried out. This is a huge building. The middle part is hollow, connecting to the seabed, which is the sea surface. All around, forming a circle, there are flat areas for people to stand on. The merman soldiers stood there. The fish-shaped, glass-like bottle floats on the sea. "It's so crowded, so crowded, Doryman. I'm going to die. Giant, can't you eat less? You're too fat, you're going to crush me." Sunio was almost out of breath, and at this point he couldn't even care less about Giant's dignity. "Shut up, Sunio." Fat Tiger was so angry that his face turned red, and he wanted to beat up Sunio. But as soon as they moved, the children felt even more crowded and uncomfortable, as if their internal organs were being compressed. "Ah, Giant, don't move, don't move." "Fat Tiger, I was wrong, I shouldn't have called you fat, please don't move." They were being squeezed, and Fat Tiger was naturally squeezed as well. He felt extremely uncomfortable and quickly stopped moving. "Doryman, hurry up and get the gadgets out or we're really doomed." Faced with Nobita's request, Doryman's face was squashed flat, and he said with difficulty, "No, my hands can't reach the 4-dimensional magic pocket at all." "Doryman, I knew you were unreliable, you stinky cat who always malfunctions." "Shut up, Sunio. Can't you be a little calmer like Giant right now?" Doryman snapped. Snort. Just then, a cold snort rang out. Little Harry, standing atop the water, looked down at Doryman and the others floating on the surface. "You slaves are truly despicable. How dare you abduct my mermaid princess? You cannot be forgiven." "Are you kidding me? When did we kidnap Sophia?" Zio Fu couldn't help but cry out, "You be ****D, don't frame us." "HMPH, do you think I'd believe you?" Harry sneered, "Princess Sophia might be fooled by you, but I won't, you despicable kidnappers." "This guy is a complete fanatic." Nobita was on the verge of tears. They had cried out for justice countless times along the way. But little Harry was like a stubborn old man who couldn't understand human speech. No matter what they said, he wouldn't listen. This left Doryman and the others feeling extremely helpless, and their impression of Harry plummeted to rock bottom. "You little brat, when I get out of here, I'm going to give you a good beating." Giant could no longer contain his temper and roared out in anger. "Well, you slaves, how dare you offend me, the captain of the Imperial Guard? It's unforgivable." Little Harry was instantly enraged. He'd always been this short and was already somewhat insecure about it. Now that Fat Tiger had brought it up, it was even more unbearable. He immediately ordered, Release the fish. Oh yes. The mermaid soldiers received their orders and immediately operated a device in front of them. An underwater door opened with a buzzing sound. A massive black shadow instantly emerged from it, roaming beneath Doryman and the others' feet like a hunter waiting for its chance to pounce. What is this? Ziofu screamed in terror. That's a megalodon. Doryman caught a glimpse of the creature below out of the corner of his eye and couldn't help but exclaim in surprise. What? Nobita is surprised. The megalodon, a colossal shark that went extinct 2 million years ago. Doryman said with difficulty, I never imagined that the mermaids would keep such a large one. If humans were to discover it, it would be an absolutely astonishing discovery. Zio Fu started sobbing in despair. Wow, this is terrible, I don't want to become fish food. Megalodon lived millions of years ago and went extinct about 2 million years ago. As far as we know, the average length of the megalodon was 16 meters, and its weight was 35 tons. The largest megalodon reached 20.8 meters and weighed a terrifying 75 tons. Some people may not have a good grasp of this number. Let me put it this way. Based on the average floor height of 3 meters in a typical building, a megalodon shark of average length would be as long as a 5-story or nearly 6-story building. The largest one even reached a terrifying 7 stories. Compared to such a behemoth, humans are simply tiny creatures, so insignificant that a single flick of its tail could kill a person. Moreover, the megalodon below is kept by the merfolk. It was larger than the largest megalodon ever discovered by humans. It is at least 25 meters long. It was even more terrifying and horrifying. Its length is already approaching that of the giant eel from before, although it's not as big as a giant eel. But no matter how big a giant eel is, it will only grow to that size. What did the megalodon look like? Humans are naturally afraid of sharks because they are exposed to them from a young age. Otherwise, no one would make a thriller like The Meg, which is based on the megalodon, let alone 25 meters. Even if it's only 1 meter tall, it's still incredibly terrifying in front of Doryman and his friends. They're the type of people who would be so terrified at just a glance that they'd lose all will to fight. Wazza, let's run. I don't want to become fish food. Nobita was about to cry. This feeling of waiting to die was so unbearable. No matter how we run, Doryman can't pull out any gadgets. We're definitely going to turn into fish food. At times like these, Ziofu has no shortage of mourning spirit. Seeing Sunio relentlessly demoralizing the team, Doryman couldn't help but speak up. Sunio, calm down. Can't you learn from Jian? Can't you see Jian is always calm? Jian, tell me quickly, why are you so calm? Tells Sunio and Nobita. Fat Tiger gritted his teeth and said, Cousin Shiraishi will definitely come to save us. We just need to hold on. Yeah, where's Cousin Shiraishi? My cousin Beishi isn't here. Cousin Shiraishi escaped, we're saved. At this time, Nobita, Sunio, and even Doryman only then realized that Yuki hadn't been captured with them. A strong will to survive suddenly ignited in their eyes. My cousin Beishi isn't here, he must be trying to find a way to save us. Yes, Fat Tiger is right. Cousin Shiraishi is so smart, he'll definitely find a way to save us. All we need to do is find Sophia. As a princess, Sophia will definitely have a way to teach this little dwarf fish a lesson. Doryman spoke repeatedly, immediately calming the troops' morale. When little Harry saw that they dared to call him a little merman, he was instantly enraged. His face flushed red, and he shouted dramatically, at a time like this, to dare mention Princess Sophia's name is utter disrespect. Execute them immediately. I'll make them know the price of kidnapping Princess Sophia. The words fell. The megalodon immediately made a move. It swam around quickly a few times, then burst out of the water, about to swallow Doryman and the others along with the bottle. The screams echoed throughout the heavens and the earth. At the same time, a clear and urgent voice rang out, Little Harry, stop it. Little Harry turned around, looking bewildered. Princess Sophia, what are you doing here? This isn't a place for you. Sophia, you're finally here. Doryman and the others' eyes lit up, then they cried out for help. Please save us. We don't want to become fish food. Stop it. They're all my friends. Sophia's eyes were full of anxiety as she quickly walked up to Little Harry. Little Harry's face was full of confusion. It's too late to give the order now. The megalodon had already opened its blood-red maw. Doryman and the others felt as if the sky had suddenly darkened. They knew it wasn't because it was getting dark, but because they had entered the jaws of the megalodon. Once the megalodon shuts its mouth, they'll truly become fish food. Sophia didn't care about anything else and actually wanted to rush forward to rescue Doryman and the others. All these farces happened because of her. They would never have known her if she hadn't gone ashore. If she hadn't been so reluctant to part with Baishi, she wouldn't have let them come with her to the mermaid territory. If she hadn't suddenly left without saying goodbye, this wouldn't have happened. Not only did they encounter a terrifying mutated giant eel, but they also had to endure being captured by Harry Potter. In Sophia's opinion, it was all her fault. Princess Sophia. Little Harry gasped in surprise, completely unprepared for Sophia's reaction, and immediately shouted, "Stop Princess Sophia." "Oh yes." The merfolk soldiers rushed forward to try and stop Sophia, with little Harry being the first to charge out. However, before Sophia could rush out, one person darted out at an even faster speed. It's Baishi. Bang bang bang. Baishi stomped hard on the ground and the stone bricks shattered, creating small pits. Finally, he leaped with all his might. Bang, the stone bricks in the corner shattered and the white stone leaped into the air. "Get out of here." With an unparalleled roar, Shiraishi kicked the megalodon on the head just before it closed its mouth. Bang, a deafening thud resounded, and the megalodon let out a roar of immense pain as its massive body was kicked askew by white stone, crashing onto the sea surface with a thud, sending up a spray of water. It then turned and fled, tail between its legs. "We left this place. What do your conflicts have to do with me? I can't afford to offend you, so I'll run away, okay?" Shiraishi, using the recoil from kicking the megalodon, flipped in midair and landed back on the spot. Cousin Shiraishi. The friends were amazed by Shiraishi's heroic act. They all broke down in tears. "Cousin Beishi, you are our god." "What kind of Manesha is Doryman?" "Cousin Shiraishi, you are our Manesha." Sunio's outburst of genuine emotion suggests he offended Doryman. But Doryman was also in a moment of excitement when he saw Shiraishi appear. He was crying his eyes out and had no time to pay attention to the kid. "Okay. It's good that you're all right." Shiraishi remained in the position of being on the ground, raised her head and managed a weak smile at Doryman and the others. He was breathing heavily, his muscles trembling slightly, showing how much power he had just used. Luckily, the megalodon was scared away, otherwise it would have been really difficult to handle. With Shiraishi's current strength, he could only scare away the megalodon by gathering all his strength in one strike. In terms of raw strength in a head-on confrontation, he has absolutely no chance of winning. They won't die, but they will definitely be ravaged. Just kidding, this megalodon weighs at least 100 tons, and just running over it would be enough to leave Shiraishi with no ability to resist. Don't be fooled by how cool Shiraishi's kick was just now. You can tell from his current state that he's completely exhausted after that kick. Sophia noticed that something was wrong with Shiraishi and quickly went to support him, asking worriedly, "Shiraishi, are you all right?" "Don't worry, I'm just a little tired. I'll feel better after some sunshine." Shiraishi patted Sophia's little hand to indicate that he was fine. Unfortunately, this is an underwater cave, a territory specially set aside for the mermaids, so they can't get any sunlight and will need to recover a bit more. Seeing how close White Rock and Sophia were, Harry almost couldn't resist rushing over to them. In its heart, Sophia was supreme. How could he be so close to Shiraishi, an unknown nobody? However, remembering Sophia's words, he dared not make a move. Neither advancing nor retreating is an option. They're stuck in an awkward situation. Sophia turned to Harry a little annoyed and said, "Harry, why aren't you putting my friends down? Are you going to let them continue to suffer in that cramped space? Is it bitter? Yes, yes, let us go right now." Doryman and the others immediately started making a ruckus. The fat tiger wasn't roaring just now, but now when it roars, it feels even more terrifying than the roar of the megalodon. Harry covered his stinging ears and quickly ordered the mermaid soldiers next to him to put Doryman and the others down. "Oh yes." The mermaid soldiers rushed forward and rescued Doryman and his friends. Wata finally down. The group of friends slumped to the ground, each one panting heavily like a blower. "Thank you so much, Cousin Shiraishi." "Cousin Shiraishi, that kick you just made was so cool, I was totally mesmerized." "Cousin Shiraishi, are you all right?" "It's nothing, it's all just what I should do." Baishi was praised by everyone, but he was a little embarrassed and awkward. If I hadn't just forgotten about Doryman and the others. In fact, the 220 policy didn't need to be implemented in this way. If we had brought Sophia here earlier, we could have rescued Doryman and the others without any effort. I don't need to work so hard. Doryman and his friends don't need to be scared by a megalodon. They were terrified of becoming food for the megalodon. It's all my fault. But his friends kept praising him and even thought that he was so tired because of them. I felt both touched and guilty. We really owe a lot to Cousin Shiraishi this time. If it weren't for him, we would have been dead and turned into fish food long ago. Nobita Nobai let out a long breath. Sunio glanced at Doryman. "HMPH, I told you Doryman is unreliable. I've said it before, Doryman doesn't just malfunction occasionally, He malfunctions all the time. Doraemon squinted at Sunio. Sunio, I remember you guys were just saying something about me like I'm not Minatia or something. Although I never was. Yeah, I was talking about you, so what? Zio-Fu glanced at his head and snorted, you beaver. What? Doraemon instantly flew into a rage and charged forward, engaging Sunio in a fierce fight. Hey, 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 stop hitting me, stop hitting me. Nobita quickly went to mediate the fight, watching everyone arguing. Sophia was actually the one who felt the most guilty. In her view, everything was because of her. If she hadn't suddenly left without saying goodbye, everyone wouldn't have been treated this way by Harry. Shiraishi patted Sophia's little hand and gave her a reassuring look. Don't worry, no one will blame her. By this time, Shiraishi had regained some of his strength. He walked up to Sunio and Doraemon and forcefully pulled them apart. You two have only just been rescued and you're already fighting amongst yourselves. What are you two up to? Doraemon and Sunio glared at each other angrily, neither wanting to speak. Seeing this, Sophia couldn't help but apologize. I'm sorry, everyone. Hey, it's okay, it's okay. At this point, the friends returned to their original state. It was just a momentary commotion caused by lingering fear. A little fuss will do the trick. Although I was a little scared, I wasn't really hurt. Zio-Fu stopped making a fuss and scratched his head, saying, Yeah, I wasn't injured at all, it's nothing serious. Fat Tiger glared at Harry with a fierce look, rubbing his hands together. But it's really tough to be constantly mocked as a kidnapper by someone. Little Harry had already sensed that something was wrong. It wasn't intentionally targeting Doraemon and his friends. They genuinely believed that Sophia had been abducted by them. Sophia is indeed partly to blame. Her description sounded exactly like someone who had been abducted and brainwashed. That's not right either because what she said was all true, so if you think about it that way you can't blame Sophia. All in all, his unparalleled loyalty to the princess. This made Harry feel deep resentment towards Doraemon and his friends, but it also realized that it had misunderstood and was now bowing its head in shame. Startled by Fat Tiger's words, he awkwardly waved his hands, trembling as he took several steps back, unsure of what to say. Yes, it's all this guy's fault. Little Sunio finally realized what was happening and glared angrily at little Harry. Two people, one fat and one short, one tall and one thin, slowly approached Harry. Shiraishi and Doraemon simply watched the scene unfold, completely unmoved. Doraemon has always been ridiculed. Shiraishi had followed the whole thing and knew just how badly the little guy behaved. If it weren't for his loyalty to Sophia, he would have killed him with 10 Punch Man long ago. The main problem is that he acted so infuriatingly. Nobita felt a little reluctant, but seeing that neither Shiraishi nor Doraemon spoke, he remained silent as well. However, just because Shiraishi knows his limits doesn't mean that Giant and Sunio do. Although Harry looks arrogant, he is indeed short. In the sea, he can use his agility to outmaneuver Giant and Sunio. Now that we're on land, who can possibly be their match? Whitestone gave Sophia a look, signaling her to step in quickly, otherwise it would be bad if little Harry were killed. He still needed to leave a good impression on Undine. How could he possibly get killed by the captain of her guard right away? What would become of their relationship then? Sophia also understood what Shiraishi meant. Before Giant and Sunio could say anything more, she stepped forward, looking at Harry with considerable anger. Harry, didn't I tell you long ago that Doraemon and the others are my friends? She doesn't have as many ideas as Shiraishi. I'm just really angry. Even without Whitestone's signal, she would still step in and scold little Harry. Little Harry lowered his head and said weakly, I said. Then why did you go to the trouble of arresting them? Sophia seemed genuinely angry about this, and her message to Harry was that he shouldn't bother his friends. Result: little Harry actually led his troops out and got captured and almost killed. Little Harry knew he was in the wrong and he stammered in shame, unable to say a word. Little Harry, you've disappointed me. Seeing Harry's state, Sophia couldn't muster any more anger. She sighed with utter disappointment, Giant, Sunio, whatever you want. Shiraishi gave Sophia a strange look. Are you sure you want to just let them do as they please? At that moment, little Harry seemed to have made a decision. He mustered his courage, walked up to Giant and Sunio, lowered his head and said with utmost sincerity, I'm so sorry, esteemed guests. I've neglected you, I've been foolish. Please punish me as you see fit, don't misunderstand Princess Sophia. Do whatever you want, I'm willing to accept any punishment. Seeing Harry's sincere apology, Giant and Sunio exchanged a glance but couldn't bring themselves to do it. But after what happened, wouldn't it be a bit embarrassing not to teach them a lesson? Shiraishi glanced at little Harry with surprise. The kid, it has to be said, does have some insight. Just then, Nobita walked out and stood between Harry, Giant, and Sunio, trying to smooth things over by saying, Giant, Sunio, it's apologized so sincerely, so please forgive it and don't punish it. Nobita appears. Fat Tiger immediately seized the opportunity, grunted, and turned his head to the side. Nobita, you're just too kind. With this kind of personality, I really don't know how you'll survive in society in the future. What? Yes, Giant is right. Sunio nodded in agreement but then turned and said, however, since you've forgiven it, if we don't, wouldn't it make us seem inferior to Nobita? Humph, Giant and I will always be superior to you. With that, Giant and Sunio walked away to the side, ignoring Harry. +4. 5.8 Nobita Nobai inexplicably became a stepping stone for the two of them and scratched his head speechlessly. At that moment, Shiraishi and Doraemon walked up to Nobita and patted him on the shoulder, saying, you did a good job, Nobita. Nobita had no idea what the two were talking about. He was completely clueless and scratched his head in bewilderment, displaying a kind of innocent stupidity. Ha 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 ha. Shiraishi and Doraemon exchanged a glance and couldn't help but chuckle. What should we call Nobita? Let me think, pure stupidity that feels perfect for Nobita. Doraemon's eyes lit up and he gave a thumbs up with his round hand. Brother Shiraishi, you're amazing. Your description is so accurate, it's perfect for Nobita. Right. The two looked at each other and smiled again. Are you calling me stupid? Nobita frowned, looking quite conflicted. No, no. Shiraishi and Doraemon quickly denied it, saying, we were praising you, we weren't scolding you. This isn't really an insult because that's exactly how Nobita is. Neither of them meant to mock him. They just felt it was a very fitting description of Nobita. DAC. Nobita nodded whether he understood or not. Seeing Nobita like this, little Harry felt a pang of guilt and whispered, I'm sorry. Hi. It's okay. Duxing laughed and said, I don't care about these things at all. That's why I need to apologize. Little Harry said rather smugly, smugness is timeless, but aren't you being a little too smug? Seeing the current situation of 12, Sophia breathed a slight sigh of relief. At least no major conflicts have arisen, all of them are adjustable. By the way, where's Shizuka, Harry? Where did you take her? Sophia looked around but didn't find Shizuka, so she asked a question. Harry thought for a moment and asked in confusion, what Shizuka, Princess Sophia? These are the only ones I've captured. The air seemed to freeze, no one present made a sound. Ah, Shizuka. Oh no, oh no, oh no. Nobita suddenly screamed, pinched his face with both hands and ran around in terror. Oh no, oh no, oh no, we've completely forgotten about Shizuka. Giant and Sunio were both extremely anxious. Is Shizuka still there? This is terrible. Doraemon dreamed that the situation was critical. After rescuing Shizuka from the mouth of the giant eel, he placed Shizuka in the cave next to him. What? Shizuka is still at the place where she's dealing with the giant eel. Sophia was also taken aback. Shiraishi then realized that he had actually forgotten about Shizuka. Hurry back and find Shizuka. However, at that moment, Undine suddenly dispatched mermaid soldiers to summon Sophia and the others. This left Nobita in a very difficult position. The movie-limited version of Giant's Limit, he very responsibly said, don't worry, Nobita, Shiraishi-san, you guys go with Sophia and I'll go find Shizuka's whereabouts with Mimi. Shiraishi gave Giant a deep look. Thank you for your trouble. I definitely can't do it alone, so I need a squad leader to come with me. Fat Tiger glanced at Little Harry. Little Harry seemed to have found a way to atone and immediately nodded, yes. Without hesitation, with Harry's help, they boarded the submarine and flew towards that place. Shiraishi, Doraemon, and Nobita, led by Sophia, boarded their own special car. It must be said that the merfolk's territory is very large, almost the size of a city. Their cars are many levels higher than those on land. It has no wheels and uses a hovering propulsion method. Along the way, you can see many mermaids, most of whom are dressed in mermaid outfits and are very enthusiastic when they see Sophia's iconic little car. It seems that the royal family enjoys a very high reputation among the merfolk. Sophia had changed into her usual land-based clothes, which were essentially her everyday princess attire. She also wore accessories, giving her a different kind of beauty compared to when she wore her mermaid outfit. They soon arrived at a palace, climbed the steps, and saw the white-haired Undine. Is this Sophia's grandmother? Doraemon and Nobita looked at Undine with great curiosity. At this moment, Undine was no longer the grandmother she had been in Sophia's palace. Instead, she became a true queen. Expressionless yet exuding an imposing aura. Nobita was trembling a little, thinking Undine was fierce, but Doraemon quickly covered his mouth. Shiraishi looked at Undine without saying anything. He knew that Undine was going to use Nobita and Doraemon to teach Sophia a lesson. As expected, after taking their seats in the reception area, Undine then said to Sophia, Sophia, I need you to understand one thing. I can't let you act recklessly. I'm not being silly. Sophia couldn't help but retort. Undine interrupted Sophia abruptly, her words carrying an extremely stern tone. You still say you're not just fooling around. You're the future queen of the mermaids, bearing the future of the mermaids on your shoulders. What will I do if something happens to you? What will happen to the mermaids? If her previous visit to the palace was like that of a grandmother to her granddaughter, then now it is the queen facing the princess, the future queen. Sophia stood up and retorted again. It is precisely because I bear the future of the mermaid race on my shoulders that I went to the land to broaden my horizons, so that I can better. Nonsense. Undine interrupted Sophia again. At this moment, Nobita and Doryman were already trembling with fear. My goodness, Sophia's grandmother is so intimidating, they're terrified they don't dare utter a single word. All right, all right. Bye, she couldn't stand it anymore. Grandmother, so what if Sophia is a princess? She's just a teenage girl. You don't understand. Undine glanced at Shiraishi, her brow furrowing slightly. She seemed somewhat disappointed that the seemingly intelligent Shiraishi would interrupt her instruction of Sophia at this moment. My duty is to ensure the happiness and peace of the people of this country every day. Sophia will be the same in the future. I don't understand, on the contrary I understand very well. Shiraishi chuckled and said, Your Majesty Undine, if you force Sophia, I wouldn't mind taking her away directly. Sophia glanced at Shiraishi and remained silent for a moment. Undine frowned. I feel like I've been a little too nice to you. In the royal palace of a country's capital, they said they wanted to take the princess of this country away. It's like peeing on their heads. Shiraishi smiled slightly. I believe I have the abilities. I don't believe it, but you seem to have completely captured my granddaughter's heart. Undine glanced at Sophia and sighed. In fact, she had already learned a lot in that short time. For example, the mutated giant eel or Shiraishi's handling of the megalodon. He's very strong, very capable, and you could even say that Undine is extremely satisfied with her grandson-in-law Shiraishi. But Undine still believes that Shiraishi has no way to take Sophia away. Shiraishi smiled slightly. Undine had no idea what his trump card was. He dared to say such a thing not because of his own strength, but because of a blue beaver that was currently too afraid to speak. Your Majesty. Nobita then remarked, Sophia is already a qualified queen, isn't she? Doryman quickly covered Nobita's mouth, laughing awkwardly. You guys continue, you guys continue. Never mind. Undine felt a bit of a headache. The mermaid princess had just been kidnapped. It was hard for her not to be upset. Sophia quickly went up to massage Undine's temples. She was also afraid that something might happen to Shiraishi, which would upset Winnie. Your Majesty. Suddenly hurried footsteps sounded outside. It's Harry and Fat Tiger. Giant, have you found Shizuka yet? Duxing suddenly stood up and asked. Unfortunately, you could already tell the outcome from the expressions on Giant's and Sunio's faces. SW. The group searched the entire neighborhood but couldn't find any trace of Shizuka. Nobita was already crying, and Giant, Sunio, Doryman, and Sophia were all very worried. How could Shizuka have disappeared? Did she go to try and save us? No way, I've had Shizuka stay there the whole time, this is terrible. Doryman had a long face. How is he going to explain this to Shizuka's mother? However, although we didn't find Shizuka, we can roughly figure out what happened to her, and we also found some strange things. That's a very strange thing. We think we've seen it before. It fell off that giant eel. Fat Tiger explained, and Sunio chimed in from the side. Yes, there's also some black liquid. We've already sent it to that doctor for research. Dr. Medina. Sophia asked, right. Little Harry nodded in agreement. It must have been the slaves who did it. What slaves? After what he had just done, Fat Tiger was particularly sensitive to the word slave that Little Harry had mentioned, and he glared at Little Harry fiercely. Little Harry snorted, too lazy to look at Fat Tiger. A slave is a slave and has nothing to do with you land people. After the time that had passed, the guilt it felt towards Fat Tiger and the others had completely vanished. Instead, there was malice towards people living on land. *****D. Fat Tiger was furious. I should have beaten you up just now. Then come on. Little Harry wasn't afraid of Fat Tiger at all, staring at him fiercely. Wait a minute, you two. Sophia quickly stepped forward to stop him. Little Harry, what's wrong with you? Nothing much, I just dislike land people. At this moment, even when facing Sophia, Little Harry showed 340 degrees of impatience. This impatience wasn't directed at Sophia, but rather at Sophia's friends. KR. It looked like Fat Tiger was about to cause trouble again. Undine couldn't stand it anymore and said coldly, quiet down, all of you. The palace is not a place for you to make a scene. Little Harry immediately stood at attention and bowed. Fat Tiger crossed his arms and turned his head to the side, afraid that he might actually run over and beat up little Harry. That short fish was just too annoying. Seeing this, Sophia sighed helplessly. Shiraishi, Doraemon, and Nobita looked at each other helplessly, but none of them said anything to Giant because little Harry really deserved a beating. Soon, under Undine's arrangement, Doraemon and the others went to Dr. Medina's laboratory. Seeing Harry's state, Sophia decided to find a place to have a heart-to-heart talk with him. Little Harry was a friend she had known for a very long time. She didn't want such complicated relationships between her friends. It made her very uncomfortable. Shiraishi followed behind Sophia. Sophia looked at Harry and couldn't help but ask, "Harry, why are you so hostile towards my friends?" "Excuse my bluntness, Princess Sophia, but I am not hostile to your friends but rather to the people of the land." At this point, Harry glanced at Whitestone, who was standing guard beside Sophia like a protector. Shiraishi shrugged innocently. "What's it to me? Can't you guys talk about yours? Why do you harbor such malice towards land dwellers?" Sophia took a deep breath. Once the topic came up, Harry couldn't stop talking about it. Its malice towards land dwellers is naturally not something that can be formed overnight. Once upon a time, it, like Sophia, harbored a certain longing for the land. The more it experiences, the worse its impression of the land becomes. It mainly focuses on issues such as the destruction of the natural and marine environment and marine debris. Sophia let out a breath. Of course, she knew this too. But she also knew that her friends were different. Shiraishi and his friends are different from the land people you imagine. They are kind, upright, helpful to each other, and care about the environment. They are not the kind of people you described. Sophia glanced at Shiraishi, then turned to look at the beautiful scenery outside. "I hope you can accept them. If you can't accept that, then I'll have to become the prince consort, and then secretly remove you from your position." Upon hearing this, Shiraishi couldn't help but laugh. "What?" Little Harry jumped up in anger. "Princess Sophia, look at this land dweller. Not only is he wicked, but he actually wants to become your consort, your husband. It's ridiculous. Please let me take him down." Whitestone simply reached out one hand and lifted little Harry up, ignoring little Harry's frantic flailing of his short legs and arms. "Little guy, how are you going to take me down?" Sophia couldn't help but laugh. "Shiraishi, please stop bullying little Harry like that." "Damn it, damn it, damn it." Little Harry's cheeks were puffed out in anger, and he looked like he wanted to tear Whitestone apart alive. After teasing little Harry for a bit, Shiraishi quickly lost interest. Shizuka's matter was the most important thing now. So he casually put it on the ground and pulled Sophia along as they walked towards Dr. Medina's research lab. Meanwhile, Dr. Medina had already made some progress in his research. The device attached to the giant eel resembled a suction cup. Dr. Medina's analysis concluded that the metal in the device was not a metal that had ever appeared on Earth. Similarly, those black liquids are not either. Finally, the conclusion BCFB is drawn. Have the strange fish tribe come to Earth? Undine seemed to have guessed something. She drew her own conclusion before Dr. Medina could speak. Yes, Dr. Medina was somewhat incredulous, but he nodded nonetheless. "Why is this happening?" Undine sighed, her expression quite complicated. "Strange fish tribe. What are those?" Of the people present, only a few, including Shiraishi, knew something about the strange fish clan. Doraemon and the others really didn't know. Hearing about this race, which is somewhat similar to the merfolk but is very strange, I couldn't help but ask. "You should already know from Sophia how our mermaid race came to Earth, right?" Undine glanced at Sophia, who lowered her head somewhat embarrassed. She didn't blame Sophia for telling Shiraishi and the others about the mermaids without their permission. Since they already knew about the existence of the mermaids, these things were no longer important. Since you know that, you should also know that there were once two races living on Blue Water Star. One was our merfolk race, and the other was the monster fish race. Shiraishi listened attentively as Undine explained the history of the mermaid and the monster fish clan. His understanding of the strange fish tribe was actually limited to just the name. They did not know the true secret behind it. Shizuka was most likely captured by this strange fish tribe. If we could learn more about the strange fish tribe, of course, Shizuka wouldn't be like Saf, rushing into the field without knowing anything about the other party. However, the story of the mermaids and the monster fish is actually not that complicated. It's just a very traditional story. The two races originally lived peacefully on Blue Water Star, but one day, the strange fish clan suddenly rose up and began to invade the territory of the merfolk clan. They first drove them to the deep mountains, and then drove them out of Blue Water Star altogether. The mermaids lived in space for a period of time before finally finding Earth and settling in its oceans. Now we see something and methods completely different from those on Earth. Even though Undine didn't hear Dr. Medina speak directly, she could more or less guess that the fish-like creatures had chased them to Earth. She never expected that after 5,000 years, the strange fish clan would still be able to chase after Earth again. She thought that the conflict between the two clans should have been settled long ago. After hearing so much from Undine, her friends felt like they were listening to a huge epic, and they were all speechless with astonishment. Then does that mean Shizuka was captured by these strange fish? Nobita was stunned and stammered, "What do you mean?" "Yes, very likely." Dr. Medina nodded. "Ah, we're completely doomed. Shizuka has been kidnapped by this bunch of bad guys." Nobita's face showed disbelief. He suddenly stood up from the table, and after receiving everyone's approval, he slumped back down weakly. Doraemon sighed, gently patted Nobita's shoulder and comforted him. "Don't worry, Nobita." At this moment, Shiraishi spoke up to comfort her. "I think it would be slightly better if she had been captured by the monster fish clan. At least we would have accurate information about Shizuka, instead of just blindly searching for her. Moreover, based on my guess, Shizuka was actually captured because of Sophia's crown. Otherwise, there would be no reason for her to be captured by the fish-like creatures. The monster fish clan kidnapped the princess of the mermaid clan. That was one of their trump cards, a bargaining chip they could use to negotiate whatever they wanted to do. So there's no need to worry about what they might do to Shizuka." It was at this moment that Undine noticed that Sophia's crown was missing. Hearing what Shiraishi said and knowing where the crown was, she sighed helplessly. She has sighed countless times today. Sophia is such a worry, but it must be said that this actually helped them to some extent. If Sophia had been captured, it would have been far more terrifying for Undine than losing a crown. Cousin Shiraishi is right, Shizuka is definitely safe now. Doraemon stood up, his expression resolute. He looked around at his friends and said, "At this crucial moment, we cannot be discouraged or panic. Only in this way can we rescue Shizuka." "Oh yes." Giant Sunio and Nobita looked at each other, their expressions hardening as they clenched their fists and prepared for battle. Seeing this, Shiraishi smiled. He knew that the savior group was online. In contrast, Sophia completely lacked Undine's ruthless mentality and also lacked the experience of the saviors group. Although this is the first time the saviors group has experienced something like this. But no matter what, this kind of thing is ingrained in their DNA. Sophia is now filled with trepidation. This child is too naive. With just a few words from Shiraishi, she managed to shift all the blame onto herself. "No, we need to find Shizuka quickly." Sophia suddenly stood up and was about to rush out, but Shiraishi grabbed her hand and gently shook his head. "Don't rush. The most important thing for us now is to be safe. We can't let Shizuka get arrested and then you get arrested too." "Oh, Dave." Sophia's face showed a troubled expression. "No buts needed. We all know that Shizuka's arrest wasn't your fault." Shiraishi spoke up. "Aren't you all right?" "Right." The group of friends all spoke up at the same time. Sophia murmured, moved everyone. "All right, now we need to know one thing, why the fish-like creatures wanted to capture Sophia." Shiraishi glanced at Dr. Medina. Dr. Medina pointed to the papers on the shelf in front of him. "Their purpose in kidnapping Sophia is probably here. This piece of paper is the very item that Doraemon took out earlier to search for the mermaid sword." Everyone suddenly realized. Just as I thought, the purpose of the fish-like creatures coming to Earth is very simple, to find the mermaids and force them to reveal the location of the mermaid sword. Shiraishi stroked his chin just then. "Well," a dark shadow suddenly crashed into Baishi from behind. Baishi felt as if he were being pricked by thorns and reflexively reached out and grabbed the dark figure. It was little Harry, already pricked by thorns. "What are you doing?" Shiraishi was speechless. "This isn't the time to seek revenge, is it? Believe me or not, I'll throw you out." "Damn it, what do you take me for, little Harry? How could I possibly be the kind of fish that can't tell the situation apart?" Little Harry was furious, thrashing about. "Tell me, how do you know about the mermaid sword and how do you all know about it too?" Undine didn't bother asking and instead turned her gaze to Sophia, somewhat incredulously. "Sophia, grandmothers." Seeing Sophia's expression, Undine knew what the truth was. She almost fainted. "Goodness, I never imagined that my granddaughter would be so biased towards outsiders. They even told them secrets that the merfolk didn't keep to themselves. The mermaid's sword, that's the mermaid's sword." Seeing Undine's expression, Sophia quickly explained, "Grandma, actually, I asked Doraemon and the others to help me find it. This piece of paper is also a Doraemon gadget. It's because of Doraemon that we have the few clues about the mermaid sword." Asterisk equals asterisk. Undine suddenly realized, glancing at Doraemon, but does this pufferfish really have that much power? What? Why do you all call me a pufferfish? I've been called a pufferfish so many times already. Doraemon was furious again, no longer afraid even of Undine. I'm a cat, a cat. A cat-type robot, do you know that? Not a pufferfish. You stinky cat, do you look down on pufferfish? At that moment, the little Harry in Whitestone's hand cried out again. The scene quickly descended into chaos. Baishidu was in great pain and immediately shouted, "Quiet." The moment the sound was uttered, everything fell silent. The friends looked at Shiraishi in surprise, as it was the first time they had ever seen him like this. "Oh, sorry, I was a bit out of line." Shiraishi rubbed his temples and pointed to the large screen next to him. "Someone has contacted you, Doctor." "Oh." Dr. Medina quickly connected the call. On the screen, a pufferfish of a different color appeared and quickly reported the current situation to everyone. "It turns out that the strange fish clan has come knocking on our door. Quickly switch the camera over there." A strange fish-like creature dressed in black armor appeared before the group. 77. No wonder they're called the Strange Fish Clan. Shizuka. When everyone saw Shizuka locked up next to the monster fish clan, they couldn't help but exclaim in surprise. So the princess's name is Shizuka. The strange fish-like creature gave a sinister smile. "So you're the one who kidnapped Shizuka, release her right now." The group was filled with excitement. "I am the one from the monster fish clan who defeated Bacon. I'm the one who kidnapped your princess." Bacon smiled darkly. Sophia shook her head, immediately wanting to rush forward and declare that she was the princess. However, Shiraishi and Undine grabbed her at the same time. Sophia looked at the two of them, her face full of tension. All they got in return was for both of them shaking their heads. At a time like this, it would be pointless for Sophia to go up and admit that she is a princess. It would only cause Shizuka to lose her value as a princess. Shiraishi and Undine exchanged a glance. For once, they were on the same page. Neijin, completely oblivious to the commotion, was instead quite smug. "Hand over the mermaid sword or I'll kill your princess." At this moment, the monster fish clan's ships appeared on the screen. They were already outside the merfolk's territory. They fired a laser cannon, destroying a pillar in the ruins outside, claiming it was a gift for them. "Hand over the mermaid sword and your mermaid princess will be safe. Otherwise, she will end up like this pillar." Before they could speak, Shiraishi stepped forward and said directly, "We have the mermaid sword. Giving it to you is no problem, just make sure Shizuka is safe. If Shizuka's safety is threatened, I don't mind destroying the mermaid sword directly." Hahaha, Baijin laughed heartily, readily agreeing that there was no problem. In his heart, however, he was thinking, the merfolk tribe has already obtained the mermaid armor. If they acquire the mermaid sword, they can easily be dealt with. Why would they care about your little threat? After saying that, he hung up the call immediately. The friends immediately surrounded Shiraishi, and Nobita asked expectantly, "Cousin Shiraishi, have you found the mermaid sword yet?" "Of course not, do I look like I'm carrying a sword?" Baishi shook his head without hesitation. He didn't even know what the ancient merfolk script on the paper was, so how could he possibly find the merfolk sword? "Oh no, that's it, we're doomed." Nobita clutched his head, extremely nervous, and grabbed Doraemon, running outside. "No, we have to find the mermaid sword quickly. Only by finding the mermaid sword can we possibly save Shizuka." Nobita calmed down. "What the hell are you looking for?" Baishi cursed and said, "This guy obviously doesn't know that the mermaid sword isn't with us. He doesn't even know that the mermaid sword disappeared 5,000 years ago, so all we have to do is play along. The fish tribe now believes that the mermaid sword is in our hands, so they definitely won't do anything to Shizuka. As long as we find an opportunity to see Shizuka, I have a way to rescue her." Hearing how thoughtful Shiraishi was, Nobita swallowed hard. Really, Shiraishi. "But why can't I go and exchange myself for Shizuka?" Sophia was still a little nervous. If something happened to Shizuka because of her, she would be guilty of 1,000 deaths. Shiraishi and Undine exchanged a glance and shared what they were considering. "All right, that's not the most important thing right now." Shiraishi said directly, "Your Majesty, it's a last resort for you to try to find the mermaid sword. It would be best if the mermaid sword were in our hands. As for me, arrange a small room for me as small as possible. Doraemon, take out your mini-sun." Undine gave Shiraishi a deep look and then gave the soldiers orders. Doraemon, unaware of what Shiraishi was up to, took out a mini-sun and handed it to Shiraishi. The mini-sun looks a bit like an upside-down table lamp. Shiraishi knows that as long as you pull the cord of this prop, a sun will fly out from inside. Doraemon's gadgets aren't fake, the mini-sun is a real sun. It would certainly be useful to him. A smile appeared on his face as he took the mini-sun and headed straight for the room, inside the small room. This room is indeed not big, probably only about 10 square meters. There were even bedding and some daily necessities inside. The bed looked particularly familiar to Baishi, who guessed it was where the soldiers usually lived. Indeed, it's quite difficult for people to find a small room in a palace. Besides that, there's not much else to say. Shiraishi casually found a corner to sit down, then pulled the rope under the lamp, and a mini-sun immediately flew out. The moment the mini-sun appeared, Shiraishi felt his cells boil. It really worked. A hint of joy flashed in Baishi's eyes. Doraemon truly lives up to his name. The mini-sun may be miniature, but it is indeed a sun. This is much more efficient than his usual sunbathing. All we have to do now is wait and soak up the sun. On the other side, they didn't need any instructions from Shiraishi to begin their division of labor. Undine began to ponder the meaning of the words on the blueprints and started searching for the mermaid sword. Doraemon, on the other hand, felt that the chances of finding the mermaid sword were slim, so he decided to simply make a copy. According to Sophia's description, it was a sword that shone with light. 12 So, Doraemon used the diamond-making gadget to turn Tai's already worn-out inflatable pirate sword into 10 diamond swords. It can only be said that Nobita can sometimes achieve some different results. Who would keep that thing in their pocket all the time? However, although we were prepared. However, Doraemon and the others did not set off immediately, but waited for Shiraishi to come out as he had said. Shiraishi had already mentioned this when he entered the small room. They weren't the only ones worried. The monster fish clan was certainly worried too. Moreover, since they are so confident, the fish-like creatures will only be more anxious than they are. Seeing that the merfolk weren't taking the initiative to contact them, they would definitely try again. As expected, just as Shiraishi had predicted, about an hour later, even though Yijin was able to contact them again. This time he wasn't as calm as before. Instead, he seemed very angry, almost like he was about to unleash a thunderous rage. In short, what they meant was, if you keep dragging this out, we'll take care of Princess Shizuka. Doraemon and the others were not as flustered as they were last time in their game against Bai Jin, and instead told Bai Jin not to rush. Only after hanging up the call did he rush off to find Shiraishi. Shiraishi knew it was time, so he put the mini-sun away and opened the door. He looked no different than before. No one could see anything different about it. Only Baishi knew what had happened in those short 2 hours. This mini-sun is incredibly powerful, making Shiraishi's sunbathing efficiency many times stronger. In just 1 hour, he had already surpassed the length of time he had spent developing his physique. Shiroshi's strength, defense, speed, and other abilities are at least 3 times stronger than before and could be 5 times stronger. He could even feel his eyeballs and throat itching. It seems that some abilities are about to awaken. Handing the mini-sun to Doraemon, Shiraishi's eyes flashed with a glint of light. Let's go, Doraemon. It's time to rescue our Princess Shizuka. Set off. And so, the group of friends embarked on their journey to rescue Shizuka. However, the group originally didn't plan to let Sophia come along. After all, Sophia was a genuine princess, and what would happen to the mermaid clan if something happened to her? But Sophia said that as a princess and the future queen, how could she possibly back down on such a matter? To protect Sophia, Harry also went aboard the submarine. The only pity is that Undine still hasn't found the mermaid sword. But she seemed to slowly come to understand what the blueprint meant. On the submarine, everyone was excited and on high alert, all eager to save Shizuka. Doraemon, calculate how much longer it will take to get used to the light. Shiraishi suddenly spoke up. Adapting to the lights, about 45 minutes more. Doraemon dreamed for a moment, then his expression suddenly changed. Oh no, I forgot about that, Shizuka. Does that mean we have to rescue Shizuka within 45 minutes? The others panicked, but Shiraishi quickly said, don't worry, 45 minutes is enough. With Shiraishi's assurance, they were finally relieved. Doraemon took out the adaptation light and shone it on everyone again, then began to discuss the operation to rescue Shizuka. It's actually quite simple. Doraemon and Nobita used the mermaid sword to distract the monster fish tribe. Shiraishi, Sophia, Giant, Sunio, and Harry were waiting for their chance to strike. If you find an opportunity, go and save Shizuka. Under Doraemon's control, the same setup was used to deal with the giant eel not long ago. Giant got the super glove, Sunio got the shotgun, and then gave Harry and Sophia 10 air cannons each, a ruin outside the territory of the merfolk. Bacon did not come forward himself. Facing Doraemon and his friends was Toragas, one of Bacon's subordinates. When Toraji saw that it was actually 2 children wielding the mermaid sword, he couldn't help but burst out laughing. The group almost immediately spotted Shizuka, who was surrounded by monster fish soldiers, trapped in a bubble and suspended above by instruments. At this moment, Shizuka could already feel a sense of oppression as the effect of the adaptive light faded, and she was breathing with difficulty, clutching her chest inside the bubble. If the effect of the adaptive light completely disappears, the water pressure at such a deep sea could kill Shizuka instantly. Shizuka. Sophia gasped and tried to rush forward, but Shiraishi stopped her. Don't rush, let's wait. The time isn't right yet. Under Doraemon and Nobita's manipulation, Natoroges has come to regard the diamond sword they brought as the mermaid sword. However, the fish-like race is not a legitimate race. Otherwise, they wouldn't have committed such an invasion. Therefore, upon discovering that the people who came to make the transaction were Doraemon and Nobita, he acted extremely rudely, forcing them to hand over the mermaid sword first. As Shiraishi had previously stated, Doraemon and Nobita's main mission was not to rescue Shizuka, but to attract the attention of the monsters. As the group of strange fish slowly approached. In a moment of quick thinking, Doraemon threw the diamond sword he was holding. Go pick it up, you bunch of guys. Toraji's eyes widened. Quick, go get the mermaid sword. Oh yes. Most of the monster fish soldiers swam quickly toward the direction of the mermaid sword. The number of guards protecting Shizuka instantly decreased by more than half. Now. Shiraishi's eyes lit up. Let's move out. Shizuka, we're here to save you. With a roar from Fat Tiger, the combat team was mobilized. In an instant, Fat Tiger leaped out, his super gloves unleashing tremendous force as he hurled bricks, grabbing the monster fish soldier in front of him and slamming him to the ground. Sunio's shotgun also hit a monster fish soldier. Sophia and Harry also used their unique abilities to hold off several more fish-like soldiers in no time. Shiraishi, on the other hand, did not use a mermaid suit, but rather human legs. At times, human legs are far more powerful than a fishtail. Shiraishi's legs planted firmly on the pillars of the ruins, his muscles tensing instantly. Then, he suddenly burst forth, shattering the pillars and propelling himself forward like a cannonball. Facing the soldiers guarding Shizuka, Shiraishi was incredibly agile, dodging the laser beams from their spears, smashing the spears in half with a single punch and sending them flying. Then, using the speed of the burst, he punched directly into the bubble that was trapping Shizuka. Bang! The bubble burst and Shiraishi immediately caught Shizuka as she fell, shouting Doraemon. Adaptation lights. Good. This time, Doraemon didn't mess up. He took out the adaptation gun he had prepared beforehand and quickly shone it on Shizuka. The effects of the gun's effects returned, and Shizuka was finally able to catch her breath. She said wearily, "Thank you, everyone. Shizuka, I'm so glad you're all right." Most of the soldiers guarding Shizuka have been dealt with. Giant and the others gathered around, and seeing that Shizuka was all right, they immediately breathed a sigh of relief. Natoroges was somewhat surprised to see Shizuka rescued, but remained calm, for in his mind the mermaid sword was already in his grasp. He immediately turned and boarded the submarine, ready to leave. We don't think we'll let you live so easily. Shiraishi had absolutely no liking for the strange fish tribe. They liked kidnapping, lacked martial ethics, and were incredibly ugly. A surge of anger rose within him and he stepped forward, but Doraemon and his friends stopped them. Cousin Beishi, we can't catch up. Don't worry, we'll definitely get our revenge. That's right, there's no point in chasing after them now. Don't worry, Cousin Shiraishi. His friends tried their best to persuade him. Seeing that the group was about to leave without any loss, Shiraishi stared intently at the submarine. In an instant, a red light suddenly appeared deep within his eyes immediately afterwards. That red light spread out rapidly. The area around Shiraishi's eyes seemed to become transparent, revealing a crimson color flowing within them like magma. A sharp pain surged through him and Shiraishi couldn't help but roar. His two burning eyes suddenly burst forth, slicing through the water and instantly striking the submarine in front of him. Boom. The submarine was hit at the stern, its engine exploded, and it slowly landed on the ground, emitting smoke. The others were stunned by what they saw. How come Baishi's eyes can shoot laser beams? Shiraishi broke free from them slightly, then covered his eyes and rubbed them. The first time I awakened my heat vision was truly unpleasant. Otherwise, General Zod in the movie wouldn't have acted that way. Of course, there's always a gradual process of getting sun exposure, and Clark didn't experience as much pain when he first awakened his heat vision. If it were like General Zod, Shiraishi would probably be in so much pain that he would kneel on the ground. Never mind that, hurry up and catch up with those guys. Seeing that his friends were full of questions and wanted to come up and ask him something, Shiraishi quickly pointed to the submarine in front of him. Toraji's had already escaped from the submarine. He glanced at Shiraishi and in his shock immediately ordered them to continue. In his view, nothing was more important than the mermaid sword. Even though she really wanted to get rid of these children, she still made the more rational choice to leave and hand over the mermaid sword to Bai Yijin. The group looked toward Toragas. At this moment, Sophia displayed the decisiveness befitting a princess. Let's go and capture that guy alive. Oh yes. As soon as he finished speaking, the group rushed out together. Seeing that they were actually catching up, Toragis knew that avoiding battle was not a good thing. He immediately ordered the remaining fish-like soldiers to fight back, while he himself quickly fled. These strange fish soldiers quickly stopped Doryman and his friends. The spear was about to pierce Sophia. Baishi appeared just in time and with a single iron mountain lean sent him flying tens of thousands of miles, crashing heavily into the rocks and falling silent. He exchanged a glance with Sophia, smiled, and immediately chased after Toragis. Without its tail, White Stone moved even faster on the seabed. His swimming skills have been improving ever since he entered the ocean. His speed in the sea is still not as fast as his speed on land. Don't forget, this is the result of him sunbathing under a mini sunscreen. His current speed in the sea is only slower than his current speed on land, but it has already far exceeded his previous speed on land. Almost in the blink of an eye, it shot up to the top of Toragis's head and stomped hard on Toragis's waist. Ah. With a scream and a crisp cracking sound, Toragis fell to the ground, the mermaid sword slipping from his hand and being held by Shiraishi. The mermaid sword, we can't give it to you guys. Immediately afterwards, Baishi lifted Toragis up, swam to the top, looked down at the fish-like soldiers and announced, "Don't resist anymore, your general has been captured by me. If they continue to resist, they will be killed without mercy." Upon seeing Toragis captured, the fighting spirit of these fish-like soldiers plummeted to its lowest point. One by one, they raised their spears and knelt on the ground in surrender. Little Harry, contact the royal guard immediately and have them come over and take them down. Shiraishi spoke first, and yes. Little Harry nodded vigorously. The royal guard was actually nearby. Undine couldn't really let Sophia and the others take such a risk, so she had some safeguards in place. She didn't want to go to war with the fish-like creatures, but she also knew that if the fake mermaid sword fell into their hands, war would be inevitable. There was no other choice but to save Shizuka. The guards arrived quickly and took Toragis and all the fishmen's soldiers away. Toragis was completely listless, like a dead fish. Everyone knew that even if he survived, he would definitely be paralyzed. We boarded the submarine for the return trip. This gave the group a chance to start questioning Shiraishi. "Cousin Shiraishi, how could you shoot lasers from your eyes just now?" Fat Tiger's eyes lit up, so cool, so manly. "Yeah, could it be some kind of gadget Doryman gave you?" Sunny-O was also very curious. "Doryman, you're too stingy. You only gave me a broken gadget like the shock gun, but you gave my cousin such a nice one." "Don't talk nonsense." Doryman waved his hands repeatedly. "I didn't give any gadgets to my cousin Shiraishi, and besides, what did the shock gun do to you?" Sophia looked at Shiraishi gently. "Shiraishi, if it's inconvenient for you to say, we won't press you. This is actually not something that can't be said." Baishi shook his head, thought for a moment and said, "My physique is naturally quite special, I think you should have already noticed." The group looked at each other, then nodded in unison. That's a joke, everyone must have figured it out. How could a child just over 10 years old possibly emerge from the belly of a giant eel? How could a child just over 10 years old be kicked away by a megalodon weighing tens of tons? Even future children will need the help of the Tao to achieve this. However, Doryman knew that he had not lent Shiraishi any gadgets, which meant that Shiraishi had only managed to do it because of his own physical abilities. The reason is simple. I have a natural affinity for the sun. Just by basking in the sun, I can feel my cells getting stronger. Shiraishi explained that this shouldn't be too outrageous for Doryman. Although future gadgets might not be able to do what he did, similar gadgets should still exist. That thing just now, it's not called a laser. Okay, you can call it a laser if you want, but I prefer to call it thermal vision. It's a new ability that I gained after reaching a certain level. The others immediately understood. Giant and Sunny-O looked at Shiraishi with envy. Why didn't they have that ability? Sophia looked at Shiraishi in surprise. She had never heard of such a physique before. That's outrageous. Can sunbathing really make you that powerful? Nobita showed great admiration, and Shiraishi's importance in his heart increased even more. So that's why you wanted the mini-sun earlier, cousin Shiraishi. Doryman suddenly realized, thank you, cousin Shiraishi. If it weren't for you, I might be dead. Shizuka expressed her heartfelt gratitude, her eyes filled with excitement as she looked at Shiraishi. Oh, it's okay. Shiraishi pouted. Even if I don't take action, Doryman and Sophia will find a way, right? And this time, it's not just me who did the credit, everyone did a lot. Thank you, everyone, Shizuka also thanked her friends. It's nothing, it's nothing. We're partners, it's only natural for us to come and rescue you. Sophia said with a hint of guilt. I'm sorry, Shizuka, it's all because I gave you the crown that you were captured by the monster fish clan. Are those strange-looking mermaids called the Monster Fish Clan? Shizuka was surprised at first, then said, "It's okay, Sophia. I only wore the crown because I thought it looked nice. It has nothing to do with you." With that, Shizuka took off the crown and handed it to Sophia, returning it to its rightful owner. Meanwhile, he learned that his subordinate Toregis had been captured. Bacon slammed his fist on the throne in a fit of rage. The mermaid armor has already sensed the resonance, so the mermaid sword must be nearby. That piece of trash, Toregis. Find the mermaid sword for me now, immediately. Even if it means going to war with the mermaids again, we must obtain the mermaid sword. Shiraishi and the others returned to the mermaid territory at this time. Did you? Undine looked at her friends with great satisfaction. The way these children handled things really surprised her. However, the Monster Fish Clan probably can't hold back any longer. We don't know if Toragas can be used as a bargaining chip. She shook his head. Let's not take this too seriously. Capturing Toregis is just to weaken the Monster Fish Clan's fighting strength. Looking at the past, you can see that the Monster Fish Clan has no character to help their own kind and will definitely fight recklessly. Doryman, give me the mini-sun. You guys continue your research to see if we can obtain the mermaid sword. That way, we'll have a greater chance of winning against the Monster Fish Tribe's invasion. For him, the mini-sun was practically a cheat code. In fact, just like playing a game, Shiraishi doesn't like using cheats. But now is not the time to be sentimental. Having obtained the mini-sun, Shiraishi once again rushed into the small room. Shiraishi didn't stay in the small room for long, because the Monster Fish Tribe quickly launched an attack. The loud roar could be heard even from Shiraishi's side, and Doryman and the others arrived quickly. But it's a bit stronger, just a little. This is war, and I hope you understand that. Shiraishi didn't actually want to talk to his friends in such a heavy tone. After all, this is Doryman, my own childhood. Speaking in a heavy tone doesn't fit Doryman's character, but war is just around the corner. There are some things that have to be said. War kills people, no, it kills fish. Actually, everyone had expected this. How could a war between the merfolk and the monstrous fish not result in the deaths of fish? Are all the fish people good people and they're just fighting for fun? How could that be? It's just that it won't be shown in the theatrical version. Giant and his friends were fine as they were prepared. Only Nobita didn't seem to be doing well, he's afraid of blood, but they had no choice, the die was cast. Anyway, they didn't have to kill the fish, the main ones were the merfolk soldiers. At this point, Winnie also spoke up. While handing over some of her royal powers to Sophia, she added that she felt at ease with her husband, Shiraishi, assisting her. Sophia blushed slightly and stole a glance at Doryman and the others. But instead of teasing them as expected, the other girls all looked at Shiraishi and Sophia with smiles like those of doting ants. Although they didn't spend much time together. 37, but along the way, everyone has seen their relationship grow stronger. How could they not know? Only Shizuka had a complicated expression. After exhaling, she could only silently wish Shiraishi and Sophia well. She couldn't very well stop her, could she? That's not good. Shiraishi grasped Sophia's hand, and the two of them led the mermaid soldiers and the savior team in an attack on the strange fish card. The two armies clashed, and casualties occurred from the very beginning. Fortunately, thanks to Doryman's gadgets, some of the injured soldiers were not seriously injured. Shizuka doesn't fight, she just stays by the side, protecting the injured. Sophia, as the queen, drew her longsword and took the lead. Baishi was extremely brave and fast. He could basically defeat one monster fish tribe member and then appear in front of the next one in the next instant, taking care of them with his fists. In an instant, a group of strange fish soldiers had their eyes rolled back, and their bellies turned white. The other players were equally determined, each displaying their unique skills, and it was only through their efforts that the battle gradually became balanced. After all, the soldiers of the fish tribe had been fighting for years, while the merfolk had been living peacefully on Earth for 5,000 years, so their combat strength was definitely not comparable to the former. Thanks to them, however, the battle was quickly turned around by the arrival of powerful submarines and the intervention of King Bacon of the Monster Fish Clan. Shiraishi naturally paired up with Bai Yijin. As the king of the strange fish tribe, Bai Jin's methods are certainly not to be underestimated. According to Shiraishi's estimation, this guy's fighting power is at least that of several megalodon sharks. However, he is still somewhat inferior to Shiraishi. If Shiraishi hadn't basked in the mini-sun before, he certainly wouldn't be comparable to Bacon, but he had already basked in the mini-sun twice before this battle. Faced with Bai Jin's slashing sword, Shiraishi simply took the blow with his fist. With a single punch, the longsword shattered. Bai Jin stared at this scene in disbelief, completely stunned. How could a child be so ridiculously strong? Enraged, he roared, feeling utterly humiliated. After so many years of fighting, when had he ever suffered such disgrace? However, Shiraishi wouldn't give this guy any chance. After breaking the longsword with a punch, he kicked Bai Yijin in the chest. In that instant, Bai Jin felt as if he were on the verge of death. He was suddenly blown away and crashed hard into a submarine of the strange fish tribe, causing the submarine to dent. Seeing that Shiraishi was about to come forward and continue beating him, Bai Jin quickly shouted, "Attack!" A nearby submarine immediately received the order and fired a laser cannon. Buzz. Shiraishi nimbly dodged, his eyes radiating heat, the red beams scorching the seawater to a scorching high temperature, instantly slicing through the 10 submarines from bottom to top. Boom, Bai Yijin was even more bewildered. How could this kid have so many tricks up his sleeve? His strength, defense, and speed were already ridiculously high, but he also had this kind of technique. Before Bai Jin could react, Bai Shi rushed in front of him again, grabbed him with both hands, spun him around several times, and slammed him to the ground. Bang, it has to be said that he is indeed a villain in Doryman. He looks ridiculous, but he is actually ridiculously strong. Even after being beaten so badly by Shiraishi, he was only moderately injured, not even seriously injured. It has an insanely high HP. What kind of blood cow is this? Shiraishi grumbled inwardly, then began to beat Bai Yijin. Unfortunately, Bai Jin's defeat in the great battle with Bai Shi here does not mean that the fish tribe is no match for the merfolk. Doryman and his friends were still just children. At first, they were able to fight the monster fish tribe with great enthusiasm, but as the number of monster fish soldiers increased and the attacks became more frequent, they began to feel exhausted. However, it seems that they are blessed by the heavens. Sophia's prayers worked. This exactly corresponds to what is stated on the blueprints. The mermaid's sword has appeared. He traversed space directly and landed in front of Sophia. But as fate would have it, this was exactly the route Byakin took to escape. Upon seeing the mermaid's sword, his eyes widened and he roared with laughter, "Heaven is on my side." Under the horrified gazes of his friends, he grabbed the mermaid's sword and raised it high. With a casual wave of his hand, an incredibly powerful wave swept across the ocean, turning the entire sea pitch black as if it had been infected. Even Shiraishi was forced to stop, let alone Doryman and the mermaid soldiers, who were thrown to the ground and rolled several times. If Shiraishi hadn't caught Sophia quickly, she would have ended up like them. He got the mermaid sword. Sophia felt a sense of panic. "Don't rush." Shiraishi offered some words of comfort, and quickly found a stone and Sophia to follow behind. After obtaining the mermaid sword, Baijin seemed to get carried away, completely ignoring Baishi and starting to brandish the mermaid sword while spouting nonsense. "Ha ha ha ha, now the mermaid sword is in my hands. Mermaids, all of you, submit to me. If you don't submit, then you'll all die." However, at that moment, Shiraishi's swift figure suddenly darted out from the side and kicked Bai Yijin's arm directly. Villains die from talking too much, you know. To Baishi's surprise, the old man Bai Yijin held the mermaid sword so tightly that even with this kick, the sword didn't slip from his hand. His hand was only jolted backward. "You be asterisk D." Bai Jin roared in pain, looked at Bai Shi with anger flashing in his eyes, and was about to swing the mermaid sword in his hand. "Ha, have you forgotten my other tricks?" Shiraishi sneered inwardly, his eyes flashing with intense heat as he severed Bai Yijin's wrist, the mermaid sword slipping from his grasp. Bai Jin glared angrily, clutching his arm from which blood was gushing. Taking advantage of this moment, Shiraishi grabbed the falling mermaid's sword, disdainfully discarded the severed hand, and then held it in his hand. Swish. A flash of light appeared on the mermaid's sword. A smile appeared on Shiraishi's face. He gripped the mermaid's sword tightly and swept it across. Boom! A massive waterspout erupted, and with just a simple sword strike, the entire army of the monster fish tribe was subdued. They all collapsed to the ground, dazed and confused, looking half-dead. Such treasures really depend on the user. They weren't as powerful when Bai Jin used them just now. Charge. Take them down. At that moment, Sophia gave an order which immediately put the stunned merfolk soldiers to work and began cleaning up the battlefield. Seeing his army crumble, Bacon turned to flee. "My final piece of advice is, never expose your back to the enemy." Shiraishi's voice rang in Bai Yijin's ears like a death knell. He felt a sharp pain in his chest, and when he looked down, he saw that the mermaid's sword had pierced through his heart. "NGG." Bai Jin slowly turned his head, seemingly wanting to say something, but all he could manage was mute groaning. Shiraishi smiled nonchalantly, then shook the mermaid's sword, shattering Bai Yijin into the sea. Looking down, they captured the strange fish soldiers who were still trying to put up a stubborn resistance. Baishi raised the mermaid's sword high, using all his strength to let his words resonate throughout the battlefield. "Your king Bai Jin is dead, surrender and you will not be killed. Yay." Looking at Shiraishi, who held the mermaid's sword aloft, Doryman and the others looked at each other in surprise, then burst into cheers. Brother Shiraishi. You're my idols. Long live Cousin Shiraishi. Cousin Shiraishi, from now on you're my big brother, Giant's big brother for life. Looking at the incredibly radiant and imposing Shiraishi, Sophia's face lit up with a bright smile, and she cupped her hands in front of her mouth. Shiraishi, you're amazing. Those fishmen soldiers who still wanted to put up a stubborn resistance all lowered their heads in despair, waiting for the merfolk soldiers to take them down. The merfolk soldiers escorted several strange fish soldiers back to their territory. The other children gathered around Shiraishi, curiously looking at the mermaid sword in his hand. Sophia's eyes gleamed with a unique light. The mermaid sword might just be a powerful artifact for Doryman and his friends, but it held a different meaning for the mermaid race. This sea area has been polluted to this extent. After their initial excitement, the group looked at the dark seabed and couldn't help but exclaim, "The monster fish tribe is a bunch of bad guys." They used adaptive lights, which should have allowed them to see clearly even in the pitch-black depths of the sea. But now all I could see was darkness. It can be said that even without the mermaid sword as a race of strange fish, any sea they invade will be polluted. A deep sadness appeared in Sophia's eyes. At this point, it is necessary to demonstrate the true purpose of the mermaid sword. Baishi smiled slightly. When he grasped the mermaid sword, he knew that as a divine weapon of the mermaid clan, it was not meant for combat. He raised the mermaid sword, and a ray of light emanated from its hand. As the light radiated outwards, the sea area polluted by the monster fish tribe, centered on Shiraishi and his friends, visibly and rapidly returned to its original state. Sophia looked at everything in front of her with surprise and delight. Giant, who usually acts very tough, was at his most emotional at this moment and even started to shed tears. At this moment, no one mocked him. Even the usually smug Zio Fuja smiled and gazed at the ocean with fascination. "It's so beautiful. I never get tired of looking at the beauty of nature." A smile appeared on Shiraishi's face. Sophia looked at the mermaid sword in Shiraishi's hand and suddenly said, "I think I know the most important use of the mermaid sword now. Little Harry, I want to go back to my hometown. I must find the coordinates of my hometown." Harry's eyes widened. "What, Princess Sophia? Mercury has been corrupted. This is my duty as a mermaid princess." Sophia decisively interrupted Harry, realizing that the mermaid sword had appeared for this very reason. The others understood what was happening and became somewhat sentimental. "Sophia, are you leaving Earth?" "We'll miss you, Lifia." "Yes, don't forget us, Sophia." Shiraishi smiled slightly and handed the mermaid sword to Sophia. Sophia gripped the mermaid sword and met Shiraishi's gaze, but quickly became hesitant to look at him. "I'm sorry, Shiraishi." "Sorry about what?" Shiraishi was stunned. Sophia said somewhat shyly, "I'm leaving to find my hometown." "We might." Doryman burst into tears. "Wow, this scene is just too heartbreaking." Shiraishi looked at Sophia and understood what she was saying, but in reality, he didn't care at all. Liking a girl doesn't mean he wants to keep her by his side. Moreover, Sophia is a mermaid princess and the future queen, so this is not realistic. It's good that Sophia isn't love-struck and has her own thoughts. "Bees, Doryman, it's one thing for Sophia and the others to cry, but why are you crying?" Baishi couldn't help but ask, Why can't I cry?" Doryman opened his blurry eyes and twitched. "Yes, Doryman is very sentimental too." Nobita Nobai chimed in from the side. Shiraishi couldn't help but sigh again, rubbing his forehead. "Are you kidding me, Doryman? You have something like the Anywhere door. If we want to meet Sophia, isn't that a simple matter? All we need to do is know the coordinates of Blue Water Planet." "Well, that's right." As soon as he finished speaking, everyone was stunned. "There's a magic door, so if I want to see Sophia, I can just do it, right? What's there to cry about? It's not like we're completely separated, acting like we'll never see each other again." Giant and Sunnyo secretly wiped away their tears, then said matter-of-factly, "Doryman, what's wrong with you? The Anywhere door is your gadget. How could you forget about it?" "What? You guys see the Anywhere door all the time too. Haven't you forgotten about it too?" Doryman immediately bristled. Seeing her friends making a ruckus, Sophia snapped out of her daze, flashed a bright smile, and hugged Shiraishi. "Yeah, we don't need to separate." Baishi patted Sophia on the back. "I will support your idea. Go take the mermaid sword and restore your homeland." Sophia nodded firmly, looked up at the sky, and although she couldn't see the stars, she felt as if she could already see her hometown. Seeing Sophia's determination, little Harry didn't say anything, but he also showed a hopeful smile. It actually wanted to see its hometown, which it had never seen before. Sophia returned to the palace with the mermaid sword and told her grandmother Undine about it. Undine did not object to this. Instead, she passed the throne to Sophia. In other words, at this point, Sophia was already the true queen. Holding the mermaid's sword, she is the most deserving queen. However, a difficult problem needs to be solved. The coordinates of Blue Water Star. They, the merfolk, have lived on Earth for over 5,000 years, and the coordinates of Blue Water Star are actually long gone. After all, no one would have imagined that 700 might return to Blue Water Planet in the future. Could our ancestors, who lived 5,000 years ago, have foreseen what would happen 5,000 years from now? If they were ancestors, they would be gods. Shiraishi gave them a very simple and straightforward suggestion. Go directly to the ship that Bacon came to Earth. It must contain the coordinates of Blue Water Star. As expected, Sophia and some merfolk soldiers quickly found the coordinates of Blue Water Star on Bacon's ship, and the problem that once seemed difficult was solved immediately. With the coordinates of Blue Water Star, it's really not a big deal. Sophia is now considered a queen, and she can't just recklessly lead her mermaid people back to Blue Water Star. She can't afford to gamble. So he simply had Doryman take out the Anywhere door first, and then he went over to try and purify the ocean with the mermaid's sword. With the coordinates, the Anywhere door easily brought everyone to Blue Water Star. The harsh environment of Blue Water Star truly shocked White Stone. These strange fish tribes are really a bunch of maggots, rotting wherever they go, pure stinking rats. This time, Shiraishi and the others did not help Sophia. They could only help her once, not indefinitely, so they simply let Sophia purify the ocean herself with the mermaid's sword. Fortunately, the result was good. It was impossible to purify the ocean of an entire planet in one go, but purifying a section of the ocean at a time would allow the merfolk to settle in, and then gradually purify the ocean of Blue Water Star over time. After confirming the feasibility of the idea, with Undine's help, Sophia began preparing for the relocation. After all, it's an interplanetary migration, which is no small matter, so there are many things to prepare. Seeing Sophia busy, Shiraishi and the others knew it was time to say goodbye. Luckily, I told the mothers that we would go out for 2 days, otherwise you would definitely get scolded when you get home. Doryman pulled out the Anywhere door, and on one side was the ocean, and on the other was the familiar open space. Returning to the familiar open space, the group felt as if 3 years had passed. Although it was only a little over a day, it felt like more than they had experienced in their entire lives. Even Shiraishi was momentarily dazed. I'm starving to death. A gurgling sound rang out, and Fat Tiger slumped dejectedly to the ground. Thanks to Giant's reminder, everyone finally realized that their bellies were all flat as if they were nothing. Even Baishi could feel hungry. No wonder they were hungry. They had been at the bottom of the sea for almost 2 days and had only eaten one meal in Fang Neng's tent. Shiraishi originally wanted to treat everyone to a meal but realized he didn't have the funds. How awful. You really can't do anything without money, even children are no exception. Hurry home and have dinner. It's just evening now, so there will definitely be dinner when you get home. At Beishi's prompting, the friends scattered and went home to their respective mothers. Shiro, Doryman, Nobita, you're here. Shiraishi, Doryman, and Nobita returned home just in time for dinner. Starving, they began to eat voraciously without saying a word. Eat slowly, there's more. Nobai Tamako watched from the side with a smile on her face. As an elder, her favorite thing was seeing her children enjoy the food she cooked. This is a different kind of sense of accomplishment from others. Mom, another bowl, X2. Auntie, another bowl, please. After finishing their meal, Shiraishi and the other two went back upstairs and began to lie down. The experiences of the past 2 days have left them with absolutely no will to move. All I want to do is lie on the ground and give up. Shiraishi and Doryman didn't force Nobita to study. Instead, they let him go with the flow. It's so peaceful and comfortable. Lying on the ground, just staring at the ceiling, Nobita felt comfortable. After experiencing something exciting, all that's left in your mind is tranquility, and only then do you realize how wonderful a tranquil life is. The tranquility after the storm is the most precious. The three of them lay in a triangle, just lounging around, occasionally exchanging a few words. They hadn't been talking for long when Shiraishi heard Nobita start snoring. Shiraishi and Doryman exchanged a glance, both able to see the weariness in each other's eyes. They smiled knowingly, took out their bedding and spread it on the floor, said goodnight to each other, and then fell into a deep sleep. Unlike before, I didn't think about anything before going to bed at night. I was really tired, so I just closed my eyes and fell asleep immediately. I haven't had a proper rest these past 2 days. Even though I went to bed early last night, probably around 7 or 8 p.m., it was almost 8:30 a.m. when Shiraishi and Doryman finally woke up. As for Nobita, this guy can never get enough sleep no matter what. He can sleep all day if you don't wake him up, let alone 12 or 13 hours. Shiraishi and Doraemon forcibly pulled Nobita up and then they ate breakfast. It's worth mentioning that Nobita seems to have been staying at home these past 2 days. Because of the great white shark carcass incident a few days ago, he gained some fame, and people would frequently visit the company, causing Nobita a lot of trouble. Not only was his own work affected, but the company's operations and work efficiency were also impacted. So his boss told him to rest at home for a few days and go back after things calmed down back in his room. Shiraishi opened the system panel to check his gains this time. Host Shiraishi. Physical Constitution, Little Superman. Skills, Intermediate Teaching, 3/500, Intermediate Mathematics, 12/500, Intermediate Huxia Language, 1/500, Intermediate Swimming, 34/500. Special Skill, Basic Telekinesis, 57/500. Number of draws, 1. Good, I've been soaking in water for the past 2 days. Shiraishi's swimming skills have improved to intermediate level. Therefore, I got another chance to win a prize. Good. Shiraishi nodded in satisfaction and immediately began the lottery draw. It can only be said that there is no time to lose. After all, skills and such depend on the player's proficiency level, level 12. The earlier you acquire it, the higher your proficiency will be, and the more useful it will be in case you encounter any problems later. Start the prize draw. The roulette wheel reappears, ding. Congratulations, host, you have drawn the special skill Mutant Bone Spur Woman. Initiating fusion. Same as before. Several blue beams of light appeared out of thin air, slowly circling around Baishi's body before entering between Baishi's eyebrows. This time it didn't float up, as can be seen from Nobita and Doraemon's reactions, they simply couldn't see it. Bone Spur Woman. Shiraishi's expression turned somewhat strange. What kind of weird skill is this? He already knew the use of this skill when he was fusing with it. As the name suggests, it can cause bone spurs to grow, and then use the bone spurs to attack enemies or launch them. This was of no use to Shiraishi. Long-range attack. It's better to use thermal imaging. Close up, he's better than one punch. It's somewhat similar to the Shiketsumiyaku from Naruto, but it's clearly much weaker. His assessment was that it was not even as good as telekinesis, let alone superhuman abilities. It seems that you can't always get useful abilities from the lottery, it also depends on luck. It's useless. Shiraishi simply chose to put this ability out of his mind. I started thinking about how to make money. The first time I tried to invite Sophia, the second time I tried to invite Giant and the others, but both attempts fell through. This showed Shiraishi that even a child can't get by without money. In fact, Shiraishi had thought about it last night, but then fell asleep and didn't think about it further. Now that he's found an opportunity, Baishi needs to figure out how to make some money. However, upon closer reflection, I can't really think of any good ways to make money. Child labor is not allowed in Japan, so Shiraishi definitely can't work, and he never even considered it. Are you kidding me? He's practically a superhero and now he's working to earn money. Of course, robbery is out of the question. Shiraishi is a decent person to some extent and he would never do something like robbery. Besides, he couldn't use the stolen money openly, as it would only cause trouble for the Nobai family. Robbery inside Doraemon was something Baiyu never even considered. But besides these, what other ways are there to make money? After much thought, Shiraishi realized that the only way to make money was through a very old-fashioned method found in crossover anime. Write novels or draw comics. During this time, influenced by Nobita, Shiraishi learned that there are many comics and novels in the world that have not yet appeared. If I had to choose between the two, it would definitely be comics. The main issue is that while there are many light novels in Japan, their sales are not high, far less than those of manga. Even the most popular light novels cannot match the sales of the top 10 manga of the year. This clearly shows which is more profitable, novels or comics. Shiraishi thought that since they were going to make money, they should make a lot of money. Without hesitation, Shiraishi grabbed a banknote and began drawing. Ding. Host has acquired the skill drawing. Here it is, Baishi's face lit up with joy and he began to draw continuously. Ding, host has used the skill drawing proficiency +1. Ding. Host has used the skill drawing proficiency +1. Ding, host skill drawing proficiency +1. Ding, host has used the skill drawing proficiency +1. Not long after, Chibaishi's paintings had already begun to evolve from simply showing a hazy floor to becoming clear and detailed pictures. In the most basic form of drawing, sketching, I've already managed to draw quite well. Wow, cousin Shiraishi, your learning ability is amazing. You're much better than Nobita. Doraemon and Nobita, seeing Shiraishi engrossed in drawing, curiously gathered around. They were all very surprised to see how Beishi had transformed from his initial scribbling to what he is today. This rate of progress is inhuman. Nobita couldn't help but argue, my cousin Shiraishi must have known how to draw a long time ago. It's just that at first, he really just wanted to scribble. That is indeed one explanation. Shiraishi didn't tell Nobita directly so as not to upset the kid. He then started drawing, but soon as his attention waned, he gained less and less skill. In the end, I got stuck at around 30. You need 70 more points to upgrade. Nobita, do you know anyone who's really good at drawing? Baishi asked, yes, I have. Nobita thought for a moment then said, Shizuka is it? Shizuka is really good at drawing in sketching class. Even the teacher praises her sketching skills. Okay, I understand. Shiraishi turned around and went straight out the door towards Shizuka's house. Hey, cousin Shiraishi, where are you going? I'll go ask Shizuka for her painting skills. Shiraishi had always harbored a suspicion. When his skill acquisition speed slowed down, could he rely on someone else's guidance to restore his skill level to its original pace? The reason I sought out Shizuka this time was to thoroughly investigate this point. Arriving at Shizuka's house, I rang the doorbell. It was Shizuka's mother who opened the door. Is that Shiraishi-kun? Although it was their first meeting, Shizuka's mother seemed to know who Shiraishi was, and she asked curiously. Oh, it's me. Shiraishi nodded very politely. Hello, auntie, I'm here to see Shizuka, she's a bit heavy. Go ahead, Shizuka is upstairs. Shizuka's mother smiled and gently invited Shiraishi in, then called out, Shizuka, your friend has arrived. The sound of footsteps approached, and Shizuka looked over curiously. She found it was Shiraishi and led him to her room. Shiraishi, what brings you here today? When asked about Shizuka's question, Nishiki told her his thoughts directly. However, he didn't directly say that he wanted to draw comics. Instead, he said that he wanted to learn how to draw and asked Shizuka to explain some knowledge to him and teach him. Coincidentally, Shizuka was painting at that moment. The easel was set up neatly, the paint on it was not yet dry, and she had not finished painting at all. But it was obvious at a glance that she was painting the seascape from yesterday, in which you could still see the figures of Shiraishi and the others. When he saw the painting, Shiraishi's eyes lit up. He knew he had found the right artist. While Shizuka may not be on par with art teachers, painters, or comic artists, she is certainly among the best in the amateur category. All I can say is that Shizuka is indeed a genius, well, except when it comes to music. Shizuka naturally wouldn't refuse Shiraishi's desire to learn to paint. She had rested enough yesterday and didn't mind taking this opportunity to teach Shiraishi. Then I'll have to trouble you. What's the trouble, cousin Beishi? You saved me so many times yesterday. And so one taught diligently, and the other learned diligently, occasionally even doodling and drawing. Shiraishi's painting skills immediately rebounded and soared, just as Shiraishi had imagined. And so, Shiraishi spent the morning at Shizuka's house, learning almost everything he needed to, and his proficiency reached another peak. At this point, Shizuka's teaching was no longer useful to Shiraishi 59/100. But that's enough. Even if the improvement in proficiency decreases very slowly, as long as he draws for another day or two, Shiraishi's drawing skills can still reach the intermediate level. Once you reach the intermediate level, it's time for Baishi to emerge from obscurity. In addition, Shiraishi learned a lot about painting, and only then did he realize that even a single paint could be so colorful and complicated. Fortunately, Shiraishi did not aspire to be a painter, but rather a simple cartoonist, and did not need to be a master of drawing skills. The goal is to make the reader feel involved. Shizuka is clearly different from those manga artists who have all the intricacies of their craft. Thank you, Shizuka. Shiraishi sincerely thanked her, saying that without Shizuka, he would have spent much more time to reach this level of proficiency. It's nothing, you're my friend, no need to thank me. Shizuka shook her head dismissively and smiled shyly. By the way, you've taught me so much, shouldn't I call you Master Shizuka? Shiraishi suddenly remembered something and looked at Shizuka teasingly. Shizuka waved her hands repeatedly. No, please don't, I can't be anyone's master. Haha, just kidding, goodbye Shizuka-sensei. Oh, you're so annoying, cousin Shiraishi. Politely declining Shizuka's mother's offer to have him stay for lunch, Shiraishi returned home, enjoyed a meal, and then took a nap. He just wanted to make money, but he didn't want to devote himself entirely to it. In Baishi's view, now that he has finally returned to his childhood, how could he possibly work so hard to make money like he did in his previous life? Making money is something you should do, but you can only do it in your spare time, not by dedicating yourself to it wholeheartedly. I took a nap and woke up around 2:30 p.m. Shiraishi and Doraemon didn't wake Nobita up to do his summer homework today. Instead, they chose to let him rest more. He had been so tired the past 2 days, so they wanted to be understanding and show some humanity. Ignoring Nobita, Shiraishi continued doodling while Doraemon watched from the side. Shiraishi has now started trying to draw comics, trying to find that feeling of drawing comics. Unfortunately, he wasn't a professional cartoonist. Comics are more than just drawing. Storyboarding, composition, and plot are all very important elements. In addition, there are unique classifications for cartoonists. Without even one of these qualities, one cannot be considered a qualified cartoonist. Cousin Shiraishi, are you trying to draw comics? Doraemon casually picked up a 4-panel comic strip that Shiraishi had drawn on a whim. The plot of this 4-panel comic is very simple. In the first frame, Shiraishi and Doraemon both get up at the same time. In the second panel, Shiraishi and Doraemon exchange a glance. In the third scene, the two of them simultaneously grabbed Nobita, who was still lying on the ground. The fourth panel shows Nobita sitting in a chair, diligently doing his homework, while Shiraishi and Doraemon stand behind him, smiling smugly. It's immediately clear what Huiji Gondao is drawing this time. However, given Shiraishi's skill level, he could only draw these 4-panel comics. Yes. Shiraishi didn't deny it. Later, publishing the manga still required Nobisuke's help, since he was just a minor and didn't even have his own cards. How could he solve the publishing problem? The only option is definitely Nobita to come forward. Since Nobita has come forward, everyone will naturally know the answer. That's quite interesting. Doraemon looked at a few more pages of 4-panel comics that Shiraishi had casually drawn, all depicting everyday life at home. Cousin Shiraishi, you're practically a cartoonist. He's nowhere near as good as a cartoonist. Shiraishi shook his head and said, I still need to work harder. It's already very good. Doraemon was unaware that Shiraishi wanted to publish a manga, but he was very generous in praising Shiraishi. After all, Shiraishi's 4-panel comic has excellent drawing skills, plot, and pacing. If an adult like Shiraishi can't even come up with a good plot for a 4-panel comic, he might as well commit suicide. This is especially true for a 10-year-old child who is far superior. Therefore, Doraemon's praise of Shiraishi was genuine. It's definitely enough for a regular 4-panel comic, but I want to draw more than just 4-panel comics. Shiraishi shook his head and then began to study it. Ding Host has acquired the skill cartoonist. Phew, luckily the system has skills in this area, otherwise I really wouldn't know how to handle it. It would be too troublesome to learn them one by one, and I don't know when I would be able to learn them. Shiraishi breathed a sigh of relief, and then started working on both fronts, drawing comics directly. This way, not only would his drawing skills improve, but his comic artist skills would also increase. Ding, Host has used the skill Drawing Proficiency +1. Ding, Host skill Drawing Proficiency +1. Ding, Host has used the skill Drawing Proficiency +1. Ding, Host skill Comic Artist Proficiency +1. Ding Host has used the skill Cartoonist, Proficiency +1. Ding Host skill Cartoonist, Proficiency +1. After about an hour of effort, Shiraishi pulled Nobita up and told him to do his homework. Nobita was about to complain, but Shiraishi and Doraemon pointed to the clock at the same time. It was only then that Nobita realized he had woken up more than an hour later than usual. Knowing he had no reason to complain, he could only listlessly begin doing his homework. Shiraishi didn't specifically stare at Nobita. He just continued drawing comics next to Nobita. Although Nobita was still alternating between fishing and drying his nets, at least Shiraishi was there to help him, so he didn't have any trouble sitting down. I was just curious about what Shiraishi was doing, so I would sneak a peek every now and then. Shiraishi, on the other hand, blocked him completely. Given Nobita's love for comics, if he knew that Nobita was drawing comics, he would definitely be even less focused on his homework and might even shout that he wanted to draw comics too. Around 3:30, Nobita Tamako came up with some snacks. Taking this opportunity, Shiraishi and Nobita also took a break. Today's dessert is rather luxurious. It's not dorayaki or cookies, but cake. Cream cake. Nobita exclaimed with immense joy, Mom, why is it a cream cake today? Did something good happen? His eyes lit up as he looked at the cream cake, and he reached out to take it. Children have a mysterious obsession with these kinds of sweets. You silly child, you're like someone who's never had a cream cake before, so naive and unsophisticated. It's a good thing there are no outsiders here. Otherwise, it would be so embarrassing. Nobita's daughter, Tamako, glared at Nobita, then moved the tray away, preventing him from reaching it, and handed it to Shiraishi. Your cousin Shiraishi has been staying at our house for so long, and every day it's just ordinary snacks like dorayaki or cookies. You've never had a decent treat. Today your dad was home, so he went out to buy some. You're only getting these because of your cousin Shiraishi, you know. Mom, actually I still think dorayaki tastes better. Upon hearing Nobita's Tamako say that dorayaki is an ordinary snack, Doraemon immediately raised his hand gently and weakly retorted. As a loyal believer and super fan of dorayaki, Doraemon declares that there is no food in the world that tastes better than dorayaki. It's not just the pinnacle of desserts, but the pinnacle of all food, surpassing cream cakes and all other foods. Cream cake? No way, dorayaki sure. Doraemon, then you can skip the cream cake and have dorayaki tomorrow. Nobita Tamako narrowed her eyes, her smiling expression turning sinister and carrying a hint of danger. Doraemon, you've wasted your elder's good intentions, your time is up. Doraemon was startled and quickly waved his arms and legs, flatteringly saying, Mom, I was wrong, I was wrong. The cream cake was delicious too. We accept Dad and Mom's kindness on behalf of cousin Shiraishi. Mom's hands must be tired from carrying these snacks for so long. Let me help you carry them so you can go and rest. As he spoke, he pushed Nobita Tamako out. Even as Nobita was pushed outside, she didn't forget to shout, Nobita, you have to let your cousin Shiraishi choose his flavor first. Otherwise, Mom and Dad will punish you. 0. Closing the door, Doraemon leaned against it, letting out a sigh of relief and wiping the cold sweat from his brow. Mom's oppressive aura is still so strong, it feels even more terrifying than facing Bai Yijin. Ha 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 ha, Doraemon, if Auntie knew who Bai Yijin was and knew that you described her like that, she would definitely give you a good beating. Upon hearing Doraemon's analogy, Shiraishi couldn't help but burst into laughter. In a child's mind, nothing is more terrifying than their mother. No, cousin Shiraishi, please don't tell Mom or I'm doomed. Doraemon's expression suddenly changed, and he looked at Shiraishi with a pleading look. The dorayaki will definitely be docked a lot of money. Don't worry, why would I tell anyone? Shiraishi waved his hand, but there are no dorayaki today, so you can have cream cake instead. Nobita Doraemon, you two choose your flavor first, I don't care what I eat. He's not a child anymore. Although he still has a sweet tooth, he hasn't reached the point where he'd compete with children for food. Besides, he wasn't particularly fond of cream cakes, anything less would be fine. That won't do, that won't do. To everyone's surprise, Nobita and Doraemon exchanged a glance and said in unison, What are you afraid of? Auntie is downstairs, there are no surveillance cameras, don't worry, she won't know you chose the flavors first. Shiraishi paused for a moment, then said nonchalantly, That's not the reason. Nobita shook his head and said very seriously, This is a cream cake that Dad specially bought outside. It's for you, cousin Shiraishi. It's a token of Dad's affection for you. Doraemon and I can't take away Dad's feelings for you. Yes, that's right. Doraemon nodded earnestly and said, We will not let Dad down. You're being too kind. Since both of them had said so, Shiraishi had no choice but to make the first choice. There are 3 servings of this cream cake, each with a different flavor. Chocolate, strawberries, and matcha. Shiraishi chose chocolate, Nobita excitedly chose strawberry, and Doraemon naturally took matcha. This is so delicious. Nobita took just one bite, and a smile spread across his face, his eyes narrowing. In fact, Shiraishi's choice of chocolate is also deliberate, because some children do not actually like to eat chocolate and prefer strawberry flavor. After all, chocolate has a slightly bitter taste, which was a perfect finishing touch for Shiraishi, but it was hard for many children to eat. As for Doraemon's love for matcha, I can only say that it's not unacceptable, and he actually enjoys eating it quite a bit. The 3 finished the cream cake, then drank the juice and continued their efforts. I didn't make any plans with my friends today, we all tacitly agreed to stay home and rest. And so, the next day arrived. If Shiraishi's proficiency in both skills continues at this pace, he should reach the intermediate level by tomorrow at the latest. At that time, he only needs to come up with a plot, and he can directly find a publisher to submit his manga. Around noon, why are there green peppers here? Nobita Nobai, with a bitter face, looked at the plate of green peppers in front of him and almost burst into tears. Doraemon's expression wasn't good either. Shiraishi looked at the two of them strangely. Were green peppers really that bad? If I remember correctly, Japanese children generally don't like to eat green peppers. Shin-chan next door doesn't like to eat it, so why doesn't Nobita like to eat it either? You two, don't make a face just because you don't like the food. Nobita Tamako banged on the table warning, you can't be picky about food. At your age, you need all kinds of nutrition, and green peppers are essential. Look at your cousin Shiraishi, he's not afraid of green peppers at all. Shiraishi reached out and picked up a green pepper with his chopsticks, wondering why he disliked it so much. In his mind, green peppers should be a great accompaniment to rice, spicy with a hint of sweetness. You might say that Japanese people don't like spicy food, but green peppers aren't very spicy. Just by picking up a piece with his chopsticks and putting it in his mouth, Shiraishi's expression froze. He finally understood why the children of the fly hated green peppers so much. It's so bitter. And it's just boiled green peppers in plain water. It was both bitter and astringent. No wonder Japanese kids don't like it, he wouldn't like it either. I hate green peppers is one of the longest-running memes in Japan, but the fact that it's turned into a building shows just how much Japanese kids dislike eating them. The most famous hater of green peppers is definitely Shin-chan, whose battles with green peppers have appeared countless times in the series. Later, even striking up a conversation started with green peppers. Miss, do you like green peppers? If the girl subconsciously says she doesn't like it, then there's another common topic that could be discussed in more depth. Now, Shiraishi also needs to add himself Nobita and Doraemon to the mix. After tasting the green pepper, Shiraishi understood why it tasted so bad. It's not just bitter, neon green peppers aren't spicy at all. Instead, they have a strange taste, and when you chew them, there's even a weird sour and astringent flavor. The main problem is that the pieces were cut too large. Japanese cooking uses very little oil and cannot be stir-fried over high heat like Huxia cooking. The result is closer to boiling, making it difficult to remove the original odor of the ingredients. Please give me flowers. Moreover, most of them are not fully cooked when cooked this way. They are half-cooked and still very crisp, which is completely different from the soft and tender green peppers that Beishi remembers. Shiraishi said that if green peppers had been cooked like this when he was a child, he wouldn't have liked them either. That's why you say Japan is sometimes a bit awkward. Even though tempura and other dishes are among the greasiest of the greasy, they insist on making certain dishes so light and refreshing. However, seeing Nobita's reaction, Shiraishi felt embarrassed to say anything. He simply patted his chest and said, "Leave it to me, Aunt Tamako. I'll make the green peppers so that Nobita and the others can eat them." Without waiting for Nobita Tamako's refusal, he picked up the plate of green peppers, heated the pan, and started cooking the green peppers again with various seasonings he remembered. Soon, a plate of properly cooked and well-seasoned braised green peppers was ready. Nobita Tamako looked at this scene with great surprise. "Shiraishi, I didn't expect you could cook. I've studied some of it before." Shiraishi made up a lie and then placed the braised green peppers on the table. "Come on, give it a try, Nobita." Although his braised green peppers were delicious and visually appealing. But for a bratty kid like Nobita who has suffered from green peppers since childhood, it is still hard to accept. She swallowed hard, but this was cooked by her cousin Beishi himself, and she couldn't let him down. Nobita shakily stretched out his chopsticks, picked up a piece of green pepper and stuffed it into his mouth. He came with a sour face, but after a few bites his expression changed. "Hey, it's not as bad as I imagined, it's not bitter at all and it's even a little sweet. Moreover, after eating this green pepper I always want to eat rice." Doraemon and Nobita's daughter, Tamako, exchanged a glance, each picked up 2 green peppers with their chopsticks and were immediately awestruck. "Tasty. I never expected your cooking skills to be so amazing, Shiraishi." Shiraishi modestly dismissed the situation. His cooking skills are definitely not anything special and can't compare to Nobita Tamako's. It's just that he suddenly made green peppers, which are considered unpalatable by Japanese people, into such a delicious dish that he received such praise. With Shiraishi cooking, the green peppers weren't so hard to swallow anymore, and Nobita ate them willingly. Lunch passed just like that. Shiraishi then continued to study 350 and began working on comics. To Shiraishi's surprise, he did not wait until tomorrow to max out his proficiency and reach the intermediate level. Around 4 or 5 in the afternoon, Shiraishi had already broken through to the intermediate level in both skills, thus gaining 2 more chances to draw prizes. Having reached an intermediate level of drawing skills and manga artistry, Shiraishi could draw manga with ease. A manga artist's skills are not just limited to basic, but also crucial elements like paneling and composition. They also include having a head full of plausible manga storylines. Shiraishi didn't use those 2 lottery chances for the time being. The original plan was to draw the skill in advance each time so that the skill proficiency could be higher when it was available. But who knows what kind of weird or strange skills you'll get. Therefore, Shiraishi decided to put things aside for now and deal with other matters later. He started thinking about what kind of comics he wanted to draw. In fact, Shiraishi has quite a few hit manga in his head. Leaving aside the younger generation, the basics are things like Bleach, Naruto, and Sea of the Dead. Unfortunately, similar to his experience with Doraemon, Shiraishi had only watched the anime and not read the manga, and even among the anime he had forgotten many plot points. He could only follow the older episodes. Plot. For long-running comics like this, even a small mistake in a detail can be fatal to the later plot. Shiraishi could certainly use his skills as a manga artist to fill in these plot points himself and even make them more plausible. But that would make Shiraishi very tired, so he thought about it and decided against it. Shiraishi wondered if there were any manga with simple plots that could become wildly popular. "I've got it. Isn't this exactly what the world's #1 Japanese manga is like? Suddenly Baishi's eyes lit up. Dragon Ball can be said to have virtually no plot. All the plot serves the purpose of fighting, with the most important elements being the panel layout and various battles. In a world dominated by masked superhero comics like Doraemon, Dragon Ball will definitely stand out and become the #1 comic in the truest sense. Without hesitation, Shiraishi immediately began recalling the Dragon Balls. Shiraishi's initial goal was to make a lot of money. The early part of Dragon Ball is considered the finishing touch, or rather, the adventures of Goku's childhood are what the author Akira Toriyama wanted to draw. But no one can deny that the golden figure was the real reason for Dragon Ball's explosive popularity. Therefore, Shiraishi only sketched the earlier adventures very briefly. Of course, it cannot be omitted. The early adventure stories of Dragon Ball are roughly volumes 1 to 16. Shiraishi plans to shorten them to about 3 volumes, and then start the story of Dragon Ball Z from volume 4. There are about 25 illustrations per episode, and about 12 episodes are needed to publish a single volume. Japanese comics are usually serialized one chapter at a time in magazines. It will be updated weekly, with one chapter per week. This means that the first volume will be published in 12 weeks, which is about 3 months. That doesn't matter since you get paid for serializing in a magazine. Some valuable royalties are around 10,000 Japanese yen per page, which is roughly equivalent to 500 to 515 RMB. That's quite impressive. Usually, newcomers earn several thousand yen. Dragon Ball, in its previous life as a pillar of the publishing house, earned 50,000 yen per page, equivalent to about 2577 RMB. For Shiraishi, that's already pretty amazing. Thinking about how much money he could earn, Beishi painted with even more enthusiasm. In about one night, Shiraishi drew a chapter, Dragon Ball Episode 1. Looking at the manuscript in front of him, Shiraishi let out a sigh of relief. Drawing comics is a technical skill. In the past, many comic artists would draw themselves while delegating many other tasks to assistants, such as applying screen tones and drawing backgrounds. But Shiraishi obviously didn't have any assistants, so he had to do everything for the manga himself. Having at least intermediate-level manga artist skills, Shiraishi handled these things without any awkwardness, and in fact with remarkable ease. Otherwise, he wouldn't have been able to finish in just half a day what would normally take manga artists a week to complete. Of course, this is partly because Shiraishi's panel layouts and compositions are already in his mind. After all, manga is not just about the plot, that's about right. Baishi put down his pen. Although it's still black and white comics, Shiraishi himself prefers to read colored comics, but colored comics are too troublesome. So this is fine, there's no mandatory requirement for comic artists to use colored works. You could even say that black and white comics are the mainstream, and the coloring is done in very, very late post-production. It's already past 8 p.m. Shiraishi originally planned to talk to Nobita tonight and then submit his manuscript to 2.7 tomorrow morning, choosing whichever publisher offered the most money. But it seems Nobita was invited out for drinks by his friends today, otherwise he wouldn't have stayed out for lunch and still hasn't returned. Therefore, I had to put this matter aside for the time being and start taking a break and relaxing. Brother Shiraishi, you're working so hard, what are you drawing? Nobita glanced at Shiraishi curiously. At this point, Shiraishi didn't mind letting Nobita see it and simply threw the manuscript to him. Don't break it. Shiraishi casually said something to Nobita. Duxing took the manuscript and started reading. You won't believe it until you see it, and once you start watching, you'll be completely hooked. Seeing Nobita watching so intently, Doraemon, who was standing nearby, immediately started watching along with him. Wow, that's amazing, cousin Shiraishi. The two reluctantly put down their manuscripts, looking at Shiraishi with amazement and admiration. This is something only a super manga artist could draw. The storyboard gives the feeling that the characters are moving right in front of you. This is the effect of the storyboard. A skilled cartoonist can clearly show what the characters are doing and what moves they are using in just a few panels. It's supposed to be a comic book, but it feels like watching an anime. It may sound simple, but it's actually quite difficult to do. With the skills of a mid-level manga artist like Shiraishi, he has mastered the art of panel layout to perfection. This immediately amazed Nobita and Doraemon. Hey, cousin Shiraishi, are you planning to submit your work? Nobita climbed up to Shiraishi, his eyes shining brightly. I guess so. Shiraishi nodded. That's amazing. With Shiraishi-san's abilities, this manga is definitely going to be a huge hit. Doraemon was extremely excited. At only 10 years old, you've become a super amazing manga artist, Shiraishi-san. You're simply incredible. It's just so-so. Shiraishi declined to comment further, then asked, Doraemon, where is your mini-sun? I want to bask in the sun. Shiraishi thought that getting more sun exposure was never a bad thing, especially with a mini-sun heater. Anyway, he's the type of person who never gets tan no matter how much sun he gets, so it doesn't really matter. However, when this matter is mentioned, Doraemon and Nobita exchanged a glance and both gave an awkward laugh. Then Doraemon explained the situation to Shiraishi. It turns out that yesterday morning, when Shiraishi went to Shizuka to ask for advice on drawing, Nobita asked Doraemon for a mini-sun. Nobita's reason for wanting the mini-sun is quite simple. My cousin Shiraishi and I are relatives. Since Shiraishi has such a great physique, there's no reason why I shouldn't be, so he also wants to try the mini-sun. Hearing this, Shiraishi couldn't help but cover his forehead. Nobita, I got my Superman powers because of a cheat system. Do you have a cheat system? Doraemon, of course, couldn't refuse Nobita, so he took out the mini-sun and handed it to Nobita while he went out to look for Zayomi. After not seeing her for 2 days, he felt he needed to coax Zayomi. But before leaving, he didn't forget to remind Nobita not to break the mini-sun. It was his only mini-sun, and what if Shiraishi needed it later? Nobita nodded nonchalantly, indicating that he was sure he had protected her very well. Shiraishi sighed. He already knew what was going on. Just as Shiraishi had predicted when Doraemon returned, he found that Nobita had broken the mini-sun and he didn't know how it was broken. It was shattered all over the floor. At this point, Nobita scratched his head, looking quite embarrassed. Shiraishi sighed again, speechless. Can't Doraemon's time baggage be restored? If he remembers correctly, the time bag can even restore people to their childhood or make them mature instantly. So there's no reason why even the mini-sun couldn't be restored to its pre-corruption state, right? Doraemon scratched his head awkwardly. Actually, I broke the time bag a long time ago and sent it back to the future for repair. Shiraishi looked up at the sky speechlessly, thinking, no wonder they're Doraemon and Nobita, neither of them is very reliable. Can't we just buy another one? Baishi asked, unwilling to give up. I don't have any monies. Doraemon chuckled. As expected, you can't do anything without money. Baishi let out a breath. He suddenly felt like painting again. Hey Shiraishi-san, have you drawn the plot for episode 2 yet? I really want to see it. Suddenly Dixing asked, his eyes full of anticipation. Doraemon looked at Shiraishi with sparkling eyes. I really want to see too. I really want to know what happened to Sun Wukong later. It hasn't been drawn yet. Shiraishi shook his head without hesitation. Even if I had it, I wouldn't show it to you. Consider it punishment for you, Nobita, you broke the mini-sun. And Doraemon, knowing Nobita's unreliability, still gave him the mini-sun. Doraemon and Nobita chuckled awkwardly, both scratching their heads. In the end, I could only suppress my urge to watch and turn off the lights to go to sleep. The next morning, while having breakfast sitting at the table, Shiraishi looked at Nobasuke and said, Uncle, I've been drawing some manga lately. Oh really, that's great. Nobita took a bite of bread, nodded nonchalantly, and gave a perfunctory compliment. 447 in the usual way. What I mean is, see if you can help me submit the manuscript to a publisher. Shiraishi then explained, I'm too young, the publisher won't take me seriously, and I'll need you to help me collect my royalties in the future. Of course, no problem. Nobita seemed not to understand, readily agreeing before suddenly realizing, what do you mean, Shiro? You want to submit a manga? Nobita Mako looked over curiously. Shiro, why are you suddenly thinking about these things? Won't drawing affect your studies? Yeah, right now studying is more important. Comics are just for fun, I can just draw whatever I want. Nobita nodded in agreement. Shiraishi glanced at Doraemon and Nobita somewhat helplessly. Sure enough, parents in East Asia are all the same. Drawing is just a hobby of mine. I want to submit my work to a publisher to earn some pocket money, and it won't affect my studies. Yes. Nobasuke actually had some doubts. It's not that I doubt Shiraishi's statement, but rather whether Shiraishi's manga is even eligible for submission. Any adult would have the same thought. Shiraishi is only a little over 10 years old, a few months older than Nobita. A 10-year-old child suddenly tells you, I've drawn a comic and I want you to submit it to him. Who would believe that, putting everything else aside, what kind of comics can a 10-year-old draw? Of THE. Nobita looked at the first chapter of Dragon Ball drawn by Shiraishi in his hand, indicating that he had just thought about these things and nodded vigorously. No problem, Shiraishi, you really are a genius. This manga is definitely big enough to be published. After reading the manga, he only thought Shiraishi was a genius, and didn't think of him as some terrifying prodigy. After all, the earlier volumes of Dragon Ball were more adventure-oriented, which suited children's wild imaginations. Nobita doesn't usually read manga, so he didn't find anything special about this manga. He just thought it was awesome. Perfect timing, I'm free today, let's set off now. I want to go too. I want to go too, Dad, we all want to go. At this moment, Doraemon and Nobita, who had been watching from the sidelines, became excited and jumped around wildly, wanting to join in the fun. Nobita waved his hand seriously. No, we're talking about serious business today. What are you two going to do there, cause trouble? Doraemon and Nobita immediately stood there dejectedly, sighing frantically. Seeing their state, Shiraishi said with a wry smile, "Forget it, uncle, just bring them along as they don't bother us." Oh yay. Doraemon and Nobita exchanged a glance, then exclaimed excitedly, "Dad, cousin Shiraishi has agreed to let us go together." All right, since that's the case, then I'll take you all with me." Nobita shook his head, feeling helpless towards the two of them. Oh yes. And so Nobita went out with three others. "Uncle, where's your car?" As Shiraishi walked along the road, he couldn't help but ask out of curiosity. He hasn't seen that green car since he got home. Well, as well. Nobita scratched his head sheepishly and gave an awkward laugh. "I returned it." Shiraishi gave Nobita a strange look, so it was rented. Well, that makes sense. In his previous life, he didn't remember the Nobita family owning a car. In fact, it seems like they have the funds to buy a car. After all, the inheritance left by Shiraishi's parents is still in Nobita's pocket. But the inheritance wasn't much. It was probably only enough to raise Beishi until he reached adulthood. If it was used to buy a car, it would be wasted. Furthermore, it seems that Nobita did not intend to use the money to support Shiraishi, but rather wanted to give it to Shiraishi after he came of age. They are a family whose kindness is ingrained in their very being. Baishi said with deep emotion, "Uncle, when I earn money, I'll buy the family a car and an air conditioner." Oh right, besides cars, it's air conditioning. Nobita's family doesn't even have air conditioning these days. Who knows what Shiraishi has been doing all day? It's summer vacation, the middle of summer, it's so hot it's unbearable. He often wakes up from the heat at night. He's wanted to buy air conditioning for a long time and install it for the whole family. Ha ha ha, good boy. Nobita didn't take it seriously at all and laughed. "I appreciate your kindness, but consider your royalties as pocket money. I really envy my cousin Shiraishi. He's only a few months older than me, but he can already earn his own pocket money." Nobita Nobai said with great envy. "Haha, Nobita, Dad doesn't want you to end up like your cousin Shiraishi, just going to school normally until graduation and then earning money." Nobita laughed heartily, which made Nobita complain, while Doraemon chuckled beside him. The four of them walked to the nearby subway station and then headed straight for the publishing house's branch. They chose the branch office of Shueisha, currently the largest comic book publisher in Japan. The building is very tall and extremely luxurious. Doraemon and Nobita looked at the towering building and couldn't help but exclaim, "What an amazing publishing house." "Okay, let's go in." Nobita smiled slightly and led Shiraishi and the others inside. To Shiraishi's surprise, Nobita didn't go to the front desk to ask for anything. Instead, he found someone he didn't know well and seemed to be talking about something. His eyes kept glancing at Shiraishi, Nobita, and Doraemon as they chatted happily. Nobita and Doraemon didn't notice this scene. Instead, they curiously observed the white-collar workers with social experience walking around them. They are all such handsome older brothers and sisters. I want to be like them when I grow up. Shiraishi was somewhat amused and exasperated. Are there really people in this world who want to be corporate slaves? He thought. Well, that's typical Nobita. They only saw the glamorous exterior, but didn't they see that their eyes were lifeless, like robots that only knew how to go to work? He thought he was just here to submit his article. After all, after submitting the manuscript, it still needs to be reviewed by Kyan Zhao Zhao before someone will contact them to forward it. Although many comics have not appeared in this world, the comic industry in Japan is still very developed. Every day, many people submit their work both online and in real life. There are also many editors. Therefore, Shiraishi didn't actually know when he would receive notification of approval. But his incredibly sharp eyesight allowed him to immediately hear the conversation between the two. That person was a friend Nobita had met through work. He probably held a high position and was likely a team leader or something similar. It seems we don't need to make it so complicated. Soon, Nobita returned with a confident smile. Let's go, I've already talked to my friend, we can go directly to the editor for review. Wow, Dad, that's amazing. You even have friends in such a big company. The adoring looks from Nobita and Doraemon made Nobita's brother, Nobai, feel smug, and he put his hands on his hips and burst into laughter. And so the four of them arrived at an office. There are 4 people in this office, all of whom appear to be editors, and their desks are covered with comics. One of them saw Nobita and his friends and waved. Are you Sato-kun's friends? I'm Yamano. Yes. Nobita nodded quickly, walked over, sat down in front of him, and then briefly explained the situation to the editor. Editor Shanyi glanced at Baishi in surprise, not expecting such a young child to submit a manuscript. He didn't really believe that a child so young could create any comics, but his friend insisted that he could only take a look. If he could pass the test, he would. If not, he wouldn't. Come on, Shiraishi, let's give the manga to editor Yamano to take a look. Nobita waved his hand, and Shiraishi handed the file bag that Nobita had given him to hold the comics to editor Yamano. The editor Shanyi was initially indifferent, but upon taking a look, he sensed something was wrong and immediately became engrossed in reading on. Nobita, and Doraemon watched this scene with great tension. Whether it will work out or not, it's up to us now. The three of them seemed even more nervous than Shiraishi. Soon, editor Yamano finished reading all 20-odd pages, then solemnly put the comic down, let out a long sigh and looked at Nobita. I can offer them 10,000 Japanese yen to serialize it in our magazine. What 10,000? Nobita's breath caught in his throat as he stared incredulously at editor Yamano. Oh, really? Of course it's true. Editor Shanyi nodded very seriously. Biseg, as an editor, he knows far more about comics than Nobita and the others. Nobita and the others could only know that Dragon Ball was good, but they couldn't estimate just how good it was. Editor Yamano knew perfectly well that as long as this manga was serialized in their magazine, whether it was the magazine or the collected volumes, it would definitely be a bestseller. He glanced at Beishi, his eyes full of admiration as if he were looking at a treasure. To be so good at drawing comics at such a young age, what will she be like when she grows up? However, in the end, editor Yamano still looked at Nobasuke. No matter how good he is at drawing comics, in his opinion, it is still Nobasuke who makes the decisions. This is just too outrageous. Nobita was having trouble breathing, but he still said under the surprised expression of editor Yamano, Shiraishi, you decide for yourself. Shiraishi smiled and said, 10,000 neon coins is too few. What? At this, the Nobai family members couldn't help but exclaim in surprise. 10,000 Japanese yen wasn't enough. Nobita was hugging Doraemon so tightly that he was almost frantic with worry. That's 10,000 Japanese yen. I don't even know how many comics and dorayaki I could buy with that money. My cousin actually complained it wasn't enough. Are you sure you think it's not enough, Zairabai? Nobita asked, his throat dry. Sure. Shiraishi nodded without hesitation. The Dragon Balls are definitely worth more than that. 10,000 neon coins would be a lot for a newly debuted comic artist, but for him, it was still too little. You know, this is Dragon Ball, which is popular all over the world. 10,000 Japanese coins, that's an insult to Dragon Ball. Its value cannot be acquired for 10,000 rainbow coins. The editor in charge of the mountain field glanced at Beishi and looked at the boy with new respect. It's obvious at a glance that Shiraishi's behavior isn't childish. He genuinely understands the value of the manga Dragon Ball. As an ordinary editor, 10,000 neon coins is the maximum I can offer. If you want more, I can only introduce you to the editor-in-chief. Upon hearing this, Nobita gasped in shock. The editor had actually agreed with Shiraishi. In Nobasuke's days, editor Kono led Shiraishi and the others to another office. This office was clearly different from theirs. It was a separate office with bookshelves filled with comics and figurines. That's a Kamen Rider figure. Nobita excitedly grabbed Doraemon's arm. Doraemon felt a little embarrassed and quickly tugged at Nobita. Keep your voice down, Nobita. Your cousins are talking about serious matters. Don't be rude to your cousin Yubu. Cough, cough, coughs. Okay. Nobita nodded quickly, becoming serious, but his eyes still betrayed him, glancing at the figurine every now and then. Editor Shanai handed the matter and the comic to the editor-in-chief. The editor-in-chief also read it carefully, then put the manuscript down with an amazed look, stood up formally, extended his hand, shook hands with Nobita, and then shook hands with Shiraishi. My name is Fujino. Mr. Nobita, I heard you're not satisfied with the price my editor offered. How about I offer you a different price? Editor-in-chief Fujino said with a smile, Can. Baishi nodded. Go ahead and say it. How about 22,000 neon coins? Editor-in-chief Fujino's smiling remark nearly made Nobita faint. 22,000 neon coins, but something even more unexpected happened. Shiraishi shook his head and refused, saying, It's still too little, editor-in-chief. You should be able to see the value of my manga. What? Now Nobita couldn't hold back any longer. Shiro, 22,000 for episode 10 of Rainbow City is already a very good price. What? Say something. Shiraishi gave Nobasuke a strange look. Not only Shiraishi, but also the editor-in-chief Fujino and the editor-in-chief Yamano, who had been watching from the side, gave Nobasuke a strange look. Why are you looking at me like that? Nobita got goosebumps all over from being stared at. Ha 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 ha, it seems Mr. Nobai doesn't know much about the manga industry. 22,000 neon coins doesn't refer to one chapter but 10 pages. Editor-in-chief Fujino laughed heartily and explained to Shiraishi, it, plus. Nobita almost fainted. What the heck? Page 22,000 neon coins. What kind of concept is that? 22,000 per page. Does that mean that these 20-odd pages by Shiraishi are actually worth over 400,000 neon coins? Some people may not have a good grasp of what 400,000 plus Japanese yen means, but when converted to Huxia yuan, it's a whopping 20,000 plus yuan. Shiraishi's painting project has already exceeded Nobita's monthly salary. Nobasuke was dumbfounded. XXX. Are comics really that profitable? Seemingly sensing his thoughts, editor Yamano couldn't help but laugh and say, it's not that the comic book industry makes money, but that your child's comic book is worth the price. Shiraishi nodded in agreement. Anyone who dared to say that the Dragon Balls weren't worth the price was definitely brainless. Exaggeration, because it's exaggerated. Nobita wiped the cold sweat from his brow. Wait. But doesn't that mean 22,000 neon coins is already outrageous? Shiraishi actually wants an even higher price. However, before he could finish his thought, editor Fujino stroked his chin and said, how about I ask a few questions? Of course, no problem, ask away. Shiraishi nodded and said, do you already have an outline for the sequel to the comic? Editor Fujino stared intently at Shiraishi. His ability to become editor-in-chief shows that his vision is far more discerning than that of someone from the mountains and fields. He recognized the enormous commercial value of Dragon Ball at a glance. Have. Shiraishi nodded without hesitation. In that case, my price for you is 35,000 neon coins. Upon hearing this, editor-in-chief Fujino immediately offered a price. 35,000. Nobita was completely dumbfounded. Only then did he realize that what Shiraishi had said about buying a car and an air conditioner wasn't just a child's joke. Believe me, Mr. Nobita. Seemingly still somewhat uneasy, editor-in-chief Fujino continued, we are the largest manga publisher in Japan. No one else can offer this price. Even the second-ranked shonen publishing will only offer a maximum of 30,000 Japanese yen. I understand, so it's a pleasure working together. Shiraishi smiled and extended a hand. Editor-in-chief Fujino also smiled broadly and shook hands with Shiraishi. He breathed a long sigh of relief. He was really worried that Baishi didn't know the market price and would raise it arbitrarily. Of course, even if the price is inflated arbitrarily, editor-in-chief Fujino will still take it. It was precisely because he saw the terrifying commercial value of Dragon Ball that he was even more eager to acquire the Dragon Ball manga. If the second-ranked publisher gets the rights, they could even use the Dragon Ball name to become the #1 publisher. That's the terror of Dragon Ball. Besides this, is there anything else we need to discuss? Editor-in-chief Fujino asked another question. That's all, the rest will be handled according to your club's rules. Besides publishing, the royalties from the sale of individual volumes are the most daunting source of income for comic book artists. Generally, one can get 6% to 10%, and Shiraishi will naturally get 10%. Of course, Shiraishi couldn't sign the contract during the signing phase, so Nobasuke had to. Nobasuke signed the contract in a daze, his mind filled with thoughts of 35,000, 35,000, 35,000. May Dragon Ball be a huge success. Editor-in-chief Fujino smiled broadly and shook hands with Shiraishi again, wishing Dragon Ball great success. Shiraishi nodded happily, 0. Without Shiraishi even needing to say anything, Editor-in-chief Fujino immediately instructed the finance department to transfer the royalties for the first chapter of Dragon Ball to Nobita's account. The first chapter of Dragon Ball drawn by Shiraishi has 23 pages, 35,000 Japan dollars per page, for a total of 805,000 Japan dollars. Looking at the string of numbers appearing in his bank account, Nobita was momentarily stunned. 850,000 yen. 850,000. Nobita couldn't help but click his tongue. Wouldn't that be enough to buy a lot of figurines? Having signed such a fantastic and promising manga, editor-in-chief Fujino was delighted and said with a smile, of course. You can buy tons of figurines, and in the future, you can buy any figurine you want. Wow, does that mean I can buy a lot more dorjaki? Doraemon couldn't help but widen his eyes. Haha, this manuscript fee alone could probably buy 8,500 dorjaki. Editor Fujino did some calculations and said, 8,500. Doryman gasped, stunned by the number, and became exactly like Nobita. The group chatted for a while longer, and then Shiraishi led them away. It's worth mentioning that before leaving, Editor-in-Chief Fujino noticed Nobita staring intently at the masked rider figure on his desk, so he generously gave the figure to Nobita. Now the number of people who have lost their minds has suddenly increased to 3. Nobita's mind was filled with 850,000 Japanese yen, Doryman's mind was filled with 8,500 doryaki, and Nobita looked at the masked superhero as if he were looking at his wife. Shiraishi couldn't help but cover his face, sighing, "This is so embarrassing. Why are the three of you acting like you have some kind of pain disorder? By the way, uncle, why don't we just go buy a car and drive it back?" Suddenly, as if remembering something, Baishi said, 850,000 should be enough to buy a small car, right? Maybe we can even buy a few air conditioners while we're at it. What did you say, Zaiabai? Nobita realized what was happening and asked in confusion. My mind was completely occupied with 850,000, and I didn't hear what Shiraishi was saying at all. I said let's just buy a small car and drive it back. 850,000 should be enough for a small car, right? Maybe we can even buy a few air conditioners while we're at it. Shiraishi repeated what he had said. Doryman and Nobita also realized what was happening and looked at Shiraishi with surprise and delight. Yay, buy an air conditioner, let's enjoy the cool air. Let's enjoy the cool air. They've played with bamboo dragonflies but aren't really interested in cars. Their main interest is in air conditioning. The 930 stone craze is hot and so are they. If we could have air conditioning, that would be so comfortable. They all looked at Nobita with great longing. Upon hearing this, Nobita shook his head immediately. No, this money should be saved for when you grow up. There will be too many places where you need money when you grow up, and now is not the time to spend it recklessly. Nobita, who was in Doryman's presence, immediately became dejected. But they also knew that Nobita was right, so they didn't refute him. Instead, they agreed. That's right, cousin Shiraishi, let's save it for when we grow up. Seeing this, Shiraishi chuckled. Uncle Doryman, Nobita, aren't you overthinking it? Dragon Ball is updated weekly, which means I can get this sum of money every week. Besides, there's still a 10% profit to be made after the collected volumes are released later. Oh, really? Nobita was stunned. He hadn't noticed it was a weekly update when he signed the contract. If it's weekly updates, wouldn't that mean I could receive at least 3 sums of 850,000 each month, which is equivalent to 2,550,000. 2,500,000 Japanese yen is roughly equivalent to a little over 120,000 RMB. In other words, Baishi, at such a young age, has already achieved a monthly income of 120,000 and an annual income of 1 million. As for the profit from the sale, Nobita has no idea what it is, but it is already incredibly impressive. Of course it's true. Shiraishi nodded and explained, actually I want more. Want more? Nobita had no idea how many times his jaw had dropped today. It's not that Shiraishi is greedy, but Dragon Balls are genuinely worth that much, and 35,000 neon coins is a bit too much for Dragon Balls. But Shiraishi also understood that no matter how powerful Dragon Ball was, he was still just a newcomer and it was impossible for him to ask for a high price right away. 35,000 is already a very sincere offer. This is why Shiraishi agreed. Once the magazine's sales increase, even if he doesn't bring it up, those editors-in-chief will proactively raise prices and curry favor with him. Zaibai, you cartoonists are really exaggerating. Nobita gave a wry smile. He had become a great manga artist at such a young age and earned so much money that he could easily support his entire family. So now that I'm a big cartoonist, a car and air conditioning are a must for me to travel smoothly in the future and to make drawing at home more comfortable. Shiraishi spoke again. This time, Nobita didn't refuse and took them directly to the car store. Doryman and Nobita exchanged a glance, then jumped up excitedly. Yay. Are you two happy now? Shiraishi smiled and said, we can have air conditioning in our rooms from now on. I'm so happy. Long live cousin Shiraishi. The group of 4 first looked at the car. As for cars, they definitely didn't have enough money to buy a decent one. Nobita picked out a small car that cost 1,500,000 Japanese yen and then paid a down payment of about 400,000 Japanese yen. Shiraishi originally intended to pay the money in full once he received his next writing fee, but Nobasuke refused. Nobita's idea was that it was already too much to ask Shiraishi to make the down payment. He was used to buying cars anyway, and it was really inconvenient not having one. He figured he could just pay the rest gradually. Baishi almost blurted out that the interest wasn't worth it, and that he could pay first and then pay her back later. But after thinking about it, I decided against it, as it might cause problems. Since that's how it is, let Nobasuke do whatever he wants. He can always pay the monthly installments himself if he can't make them later. The car purchase paperwork wasn't done quickly. By the time it was almost done, it was already noon, and the license plate still hadn't been issued. We could only get a temporary license plate and drive off on the spot. We found a ramen restaurant and had a bowl of ramen together. Having a car is so convenient, and Nobita is happy driving it. What man doesn't like Junko? Next, they went to the mall and bought 2 more air conditioners, spending another 300,000 yen. Fortunately, the service at the mall was good. When they heard that Shiraishi wanted to use it right away, they immediately arranged for a car and a renovation worker to follow Nobita to his house and start installing the air conditioner. One unit is on the second floor and one unit is on the first floor. Shiraishi originally wanted to install one in the kitchen as well, since it gets quite hot when cooking, but he didn't have enough money right now, so he had to postpone it and install it in the room first. He would arrange for the kitchen to be installed when the next sum of money arrived. Seeing the car that suddenly drove back, along with the air conditioner and the renovation worker, Nobita was completely bewildered and stunned. When he didn't come back at noon, around 3 or 4, Nobita and Nobitama talked on the phone. But some things were obviously not clear over the phone, so he didn't talk to Nobitama directly but decided to bring it up after he got back. Here you are, Zyabai, this is the remaining 150,000 neon coins. After watching the renovation workers install the air conditioner and then seeing them off, Nobita took out a wad of Japanese currency and handed it to Shiraishi. Shiraishi took the neon coins and then ran upstairs with Doraemon and Nobita to experience the cool air from the new air conditioner. Nobita stayed behind and talked to Nobita Tamako about what happened that day. Air conditioning is so comfortable tilde tilde tilde. Nobita lay comfortably on the cool tatami mat, stretching out into a wide starfish shape. Doraemon pressed his face to the ground, feeling incredibly comfortable, and involuntarily wriggled a few times toward the air conditioner blowing cool air. Doraemon felt like he bumped into something, and when he looked up, he found that Nobita was also squeezing towards the place where the air conditioner was blowing. The eyes of both the human and the cat became extremely sharp at this moment, and they frantically began to nudge each other with their heads. Nobita, I'm always tired, blow on me first. Doraemon, I'm a little tired too. I have to do homework all day long, I think I need to blow on it first. The two sides clashed head-on and engaged in a fierce battle. Nobita, you've gone too far. Doraemon, you're really going too far. 12. Shiraishi was getting tired of hearing their antics. Stop, stop, stop. If you keep arguing, neither of us will be playing anymore. Upon hearing this, Doraemon and Nobita immediately calmed down. Baishi took out the remote control and casually adjusted it. Isn't it fine now? You can blow it from either side and the blowing time is the same for both. Is that fair? A person and a cat lay on the ground, peacefully squinting their eyes. I never thought air conditioning could spin around like a fan. Well, Shiraishi shook his head helplessly, then lay down on the ground and squinted his eyes slightly. Tonight's dinner was quite lavish. It seems that Nobita personally took Nobita Tamako out. While experiencing the car, I bought a lot of groceries. You can find almost any dish you can think of in Japan. Not bad, right? Of course it's great, I'm starting to eat. What are you starting, Nobita? Tonight's dish is specially made for your cousin Shiraishi. It's alright, auntie, just start eating. The following afternoons. As usual, Shiraishi was drawing manga. He planned to draw 3 chapters today and then hand them all over to Nobita at once. Nobita could then submit them for publication. 1 chapter per week would take almost a month. Hey Doraemon, I really don't want to go out. I'd rather stay home and enjoy the air conditioning. Nobita, holding Doraemon's big head, pleaded, but Giant and Sunio want me to go play baseball and I don't want to go. Doraemon, can you pull out another me and go out for me? Doraemon lazily stood up from the tatami mat. Nobita, I just can't do anything with you. I'll go back in time and call you here since you want to play baseball. He then opened the drawer, preparing to enter the time machine and return to the past. But Shiraishi stopped him. Shiraishi slammed the drawer back shut with one hand, then looked at Doraemon and Nobita and said very seriously, Doraemon, you spoil Nobita too much. Why use the time machine for such a small thing? You're abusing it. What if we attract the time police? Even if it doesn't attract the time police, have you considered that if you use a time machine for such a small matter, what will happen if you make a mistake in the future and want to go back in time to fix it? Wouldn't that mean there's no cost to making mistakes? How can you grow if there's no cost to making mistakes? Doraemon lowered his head after being scolded. I know, cousin Shiraishi, I know I was wrong. Then he looked up at Nobita and said, Nobita, you go out right now and play baseball with Giant and Sunio. You made this promise yourself, you can't always rely on me and the gadgets for everything. Nobita listened to the whole thing from the side, and knew that there was no way to get Doraemon to help him. He could only walk out of the air-conditioned room with great difficulty. Ah, it's so hot. Dixing let out a wail, almost dying, but he still couldn't help but run, not only wanting to get out of the house as soon as possible, but also wanting to get away from the sun as quickly as possible. Shiraishi glanced at Nobita's back, then continued drawing. In fact, he was invited out by Giant and Sunio today, but he doesn't know baseball and also wants to draw, so he declined. Dixing dared not refuse. He had already finished drawing half of episodes 2 and 3 this morning, and now he has finished episode 3 as well. This afternoon, he plans to draw episode 5. He had originally planned to use Doraemon's canned food workshop, but after thinking about it, he realized he wasn't in a hurry. Spending an hour in a cannery feels like a long time passing, even though only a short time passes outside. There's no real need to use it unless you're in a real rush to meet a deadline. It was evening. Nobita Nobai is back. He hung his head dejectedly, covered in mud, and tried to lie down, but Doraemon stopped him. What happened, Nobita's? Wowza, Doraemon, cousin Shiraishi. Seeing his two closest friends, Nobita couldn't hold back anymore and started wailing. The plaza where we play baseball has been taken over. Giant and Sunio made me go and get it back, and then I got chased by those middle schoolers. How awful. Duxing recounted what had happened. It's actually quite simple. That square used to be where they often played baseball. But when they went there today, they suddenly found it had been taken over by a group of junior high school students. Giant and Sunio were very unwilling, but they didn't dare to go themselves, so they could only let Nobita go. As a result, Nobita angered people with a few words and started running for his life. He ran like that for an entire afternoon and even fell into a ditch once, which is why he ended up like this, covered in mud. Moreover, according to Nobita, Giant and Sunio blamed Nobita for not being able to take back the plaza. It's all Nobita's fault for not having the courage. If he had, he would have taken back the square long ago. Shiraishi and Doraemon exchanged a helpless glance. I can only say that he is indeed a child. Just a few days ago, we were all working hard and encouraging each other, practically like brothers in arms. A few days later, they still bullied each other as before. Never mind, I'll go and get it back for you tomorrow. Shiraishi shook his head and said, they're just some middle school students. You've been through so much, how could you be afraid of middle school students? Are middle school students more terrifying than the monster fish tribe? More terrifying than Bai Yijin? Junior high school students actually means junior high school students who are only a few years older than them. But given their experiences, they shouldn't be afraid of them. As someone once said, after experiencing great trials and tribulations, one will look down on the silly antics of children. Hee hee. Point 900. Nobita got excited when he heard that Shiraishi was going to stand up for him, but then he scratched his head when he heard what Shiraishi said next. In my eyes, they're all pretty much the same. Scary. This idea really suits you, Nobita. Shiraishi covered his head speechlessly. Forget it, Nobita, hurry up and take a bath now. If your aunt sees you like this, she will definitely want to praise you. REASONS. Now that Shiraishi had given him assurances, Nobita felt much more relaxed and ran downstairs. After washing up and having dinner, Shiraishi handed over all his drawings to Nobita, which made Nobita marvel at how amazing Shiraishi was. 4 episodes were written in one day. If he didn't only update weekly, at a rate of 4 chapters a day, he could make a fortune in no time, enough to buy a new house. The night was bright and the stars were few. Everyone lay down to sleep. With air conditioning, sleeping is very comfortable. Moreover, because of the air conditioning, Shiraishi and Nobita have already taken out their bedding, which they would normally only use in winter. Doraemon would also leave a small crack in the door so that the cool air could naturally drift in and he could enjoy it too. Suddenly, there was a thud. Ah. Nobita jumped up as if he'd been hit, shouting in terror, earthquake, earthquake. It's a real earthquake, we're doomed. Cousin Shiraishi, Doraemon, Mom and Dad, run. Doraemon groggily opened his eyes. What are you doing, Nobita? Why aren't you sleeping at this hour? His earth-shattering, ghost-like wailing immediately attracted the attention of those below, drawing Nobita and Nobitama, who were sound asleep, up to the scene. Holding various weapons, such as brooms, they warily looked around. However, once Nobita's voice stopped, there was no other sound in the world, and the night remained as silent as ever. What's wrong with you, Nobita? Why are you howling like a banshee in the middle of the night? Go to sleep. Nobitamako sulked as she walked downstairs. Nobita glanced at the awakened Shiraishi and Doraemon. Nobita, you woke Doraemon and Shiraishi up. Go back to sleep. Although nothing was said, the tone of voice was unmistakable. Shiraishi remained silent throughout because he had indeed felt the tremor. As the couple continued their journey, Duxing began to doubt himself. Am I overthinking things? Nobita sat back down in bed. You're definitely overthinking it. Doraemon yawned. BCCA patted his mouth and said, I'm going to sleep now, you should go to sleep too. Etc. Shiraishi suddenly said, don't sleep yet, Doraemon. Nobita isn't hallucinating because I felt it too. Nobita's eyes widened suddenly as he stared at Shiraishi, his eyes filled with excitement. That's right, that's right. I knew I couldn't be hallucinating, it must have been an earthquake. What? When Shiraishi spoke up, Doraemon also said incredulously, was there really an earthquake just now? Why didn't I feel it? So it wasn't an earthquake, it was just vibrations coming from beneath the floor. Shiraishi glanced under the blanket where Nobita was sitting. What? There's something under the floor. Nobita quickly jumped out of the covers and looked at them warily. Cousin Beishi, what could be shaking under this floor? Doraemon asked, quite bewildered. I've never experienced anything like this before. Logically speaking, the vibration is most likely caused by the presence of rats. Shiraishi continued his analysis according to his own ideas. What? Doraemon screamed, his expression turning utterly terrified. Mouse, 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 really, cousin Shiraishi? Doraemon's scream was quite powerful. Nobita's daughter, Tamako, and Nobita's son downstairs heard it and were so angry that they covered their heads with their blankets. Fortunately, there's air conditioning, so it's not unbearably hot. Shiraishi's lips twitched slightly and he made a SHH gesture. Keep your voice down, Doraemon. I was just saying to analyze it logically, but have you forgotten? There's no partition between the first and second floors, it's just concrete and tatami mats. How could a rat possibly survive in there? It's not a rat, that's good, that's good. Doraemon finally breathed a sigh of relief. Doraemon, you're such a coward. Nobita complained, then looked at Shiraishi. Shiraishi-kun, what could that be? According to you, there's no partition and it's not an earthquake, but my tatami mats. Could they be ghosts? That's right, it should be correct. Only a ghost could do something like this. Oh no, our house is haunted. In the end, Nobita was so frightened by his own words that he retreated repeatedly, his face filled with terror, his body pressed tightly against the desk with nowhere left to go. How could there be ghosts in this world, Nobita? You have to believe in science, really. Doraemon couldn't help but say, how could anyone be afraid of ghosts? You're just afraid of mice, aren't you? Nobita couldn't help but retort. What? My fear of mice and your fear of ghosts are not the same thing. Doraemon and Nobita immediately started glaring at each other. Why don't you just lift up the tatami mats and take a look? Shiraishi ignored Doraemon and Nobita, focusing instead on the tatami mat. That's right. Doraemon wholeheartedly agreed, then exchanged a glance with Nobita, only to see the look in Nobita's eyes and immediately feel helpless. Nobita lowered his head, indicating that he was terrified. Nobita, you really need to work on your courage. Shiraishi said, I won't help you, you have to go tonight. That's right. Doraemon wholeheartedly agreed, knowing that Shiraishi was doing it for Nobita's own good to train him. But Nobita was still very scared. He clung to the legs of the table and chair and said he was too scared to go. He wanted to shamelessly beg to go. Nobita, if you don't get up, I won't help you tomorrow. Shiraishi bluntly asked, do you think it's better to go and lift the tatami mats now or wait until tomorrow to get beaten up by Giant? Nobita shuddered and looked at Shiraishi with pleading eyes, but Shiraishi's eyes were as firm as steel, and nothing he said would work. If Nobita says he can't do it, then he can't do it tomorrow either, so I'll just go and help him. At that moment, Nobita realized that Shiraishi was serious and timidly asked, Cousin Shiraishi, are there really roses in this world? Anyway, there are definitely no ghosts in this house now. In fact, Shiraishi didn't know whether ghosts existed in the world. The main thing is that anything can happen in Doraemon's world. Even vampires exist, but who knows if ghosts in their spirit form even exist? Even Shiraishi couldn't be sure. All he could say was that there were definitely no ghosts here. Although it's impossible, it's safe to lie to Nobita right now. All right. Nobita finally spoke up. Doraemon quickly got out of the wardrobe, and then the two of them pushed the bedding aside, staring intently at the tatami mat just like Shiraishi. I'll count them and then we'll lift the tatami mats together. Nobita swallowed hard, and as he stared at Doraemon, a cold sweat slowly trickled down his forehead. Land equals. Nobita and Doraemon both start picking at the edge of the tatami mat. Bang. But in the next second, the tatami suddenly shook violently, and the entire tatami flew up. Right under Shiraishi's nose, a pink figure darted out at a speed beyond the reach of ordinary people, opened the door and flew downstairs. Doraemon and Nobita were both thrown out by the shock and crashed to the ground with a thud, seeing stars. A mouse. Shiraishi only saw the creature's back and asked with some uncertainty, "What, a rat?" Doraemon jolted awake, then jumped to his feet, his face visibly flushed with rage. "I knew it, that damned rat was bothering us. I'm going to kill it." After saying that, he ignored Shiraishi and Nobita's attempts to stop him and rushed straight to the first floor. Shiraishi and Nobita exchanged a glance, sensing something was amiss with Doraemon's current state. They quickly gave chase. Doraemon was seen hiding by the kitchen door downstairs, peeking out to see what was happening inside, his body trembling. "What did you find, Doraemon?" Nobita quickly stepped forward and asked. Doraemon clenched his fist, withdrew his protruding head, trembling with rage, steam rising from his forehead, his face flushed crimson. A mouse, that mouse, was stealing snacks from the cupboard. "Dorayaki, my Dorayaki." "Oh, yes." Shiraishi glanced sideways and saw a Dorayaki with a bite taken out of it lying on the ground. A bad feeling rose in his heart. "Doraemon, don't be angry." He originally wanted to say that he would buy him a bunch of Dorayaki the next day. But Doraemon, blinded by rage, was in no condition to listen to human speech and immediately began pulling out weapons from his four-dimensional magic pocket. Shotgun, not enough. An air cannons. Not enough. Not enough, not enough, not enough at all. I'm going to wipe out all the rats in this world. How dare they steal my Dorayaki, they'll eat them all. Song bites Shizong and throws his hand on the ground. Unforgivable. Planet Destroyer Bomb. As Doraemon pulled out the Planet Destroyer Bomb and casually tossed it aside, the whole house shook. If it weren't for the frequent earthquakes in Japan, Nobita and Nobitamako might have noticed something was wrong. Looking at the planet-destroying bomb, Shiraishi felt as if his breath had stopped and his head was spinning. What was Doraemon up to? "Doraemon, Doraemon, don't do this. Don't do this." Nobita tried to dissuade Doraemon, but Doraemon was clearly insane at this point. The fact that he hates rats the most and loves Dorayaki the most together is already hard to accept. The rat actually only took one bite before throwing the Dorayaki on the ground. "What? Are you looking down on Dorayaki? Doraemon can't accept being looked down upon by a mouse when making Dorayaki." Shiraishi's doubts were quickly resolved. Doraemon then pulled out a cannonball roughly the size of himself, his face flushed, and roared, "Galaxy Destruction Bomb, die." "No, Doraemons." Nobita's pupils suddenly contracted, and he let out a wail, trying to step forward to stop Doraemon. But Doraemon was completely obsessed at this point. They act without thinking at all. He pulled out a galactic-destroying bomb and immediately wanted to detonate it. Shiraishi didn't want Doraemon to actually blow up the galaxy. With his current strength, he couldn't withstand even a planet-destroying bomb, let alone a galaxy-destroying bomb. "I'm sorry, Doraemon." Shiraishi silently apologized to Doraemon in his heart, then raised his hand and chopped at Doraemon's neck. Oh, Doraemon doesn't have a neck, so Shiraishi aimed at Doraemon's head and delivered a swift chop. Doraemon shrank back, his expression froze, then his eyes rolled back and he fell to the ground with a thud. However, no one paid attention to Doraemon lying on the ground, so Shiraishi quickly grabbed the Galaxy Destruction Bomb. Who knows what the fuse is? What if it falls to the ground and causes a sudden explosion? Holding the Galaxy Destruction Bomb, Shiraishi felt an intense burning sensation in his hand and wished he could throw it away. "Damn it, future century, who taught you to do things like this?" "Nobita, hurry up and turn Doraemon over so we can put the stuff back in." Shiraishi was holding the Galaxy Destruction Bomb. The bomb wasn't heavy, otherwise Doraemon wouldn't have been able to lift it. However, it was probably a manifestation of his rage, and it was quite light for Shiraishi. Okay. Nobita felt Doraemon turn around, open the four-dimensional magic pocket, and Shiraishi quickly stuffed the Galaxy Destruction Bomb into it, and then stuffed the Planet Destruction Bomb on the ground next to it in as well, before finally letting out a huge sigh of relief. Earth and the Milky Way galaxy inexplicably experienced a crisis, and then inexplicably survived it. They talk about threats to Earth and the Milky Way all the time, but now it seems the biggest threat to Earth and the Milky Way is clearly this blue robot cat. Nobita breathed a sigh of relief and was about to say something when Shiraishi suddenly turned his head, and then there was some commotion at the kitchen doorway. Shiraishi reacted swiftly and grabbed the creature. The creature struggled incessantly. "Ah, I'm doomed, I've been captured by the barbarians. The air on this planet is so polluted, I can't take it anymore, I have no strength left, I can't go back, am I going to die?" It was only then that Shiraishi realized that what was in front of him was not a mouse, but a pink rabbit. But it's different from a real rabbit. Its body is round and plump, its tail is long, and its hands are like a human's. So it wasn't a rabbit after all. Nobita Nobai also came over at this time, looking at the rabbit with great curiosity. Bake it or boil it, it's up to you. The rabbit looked like it was about to bravely face its death, still holding a dorayaki in its hand. It seemed that it hadn't thrown the dorayaki on the ground because it disliked it. Then, Nobita, let's roast it. Shiraishi's eyes darted around and he winked at Nobita. His tone suddenly turned dangerous, and he picked up the rabbit, slowly bringing his face close to Nobita's. Just now, because of this dead rabbit, Earth and the Milky Way suffered a terrible crisis. If we don't get rid of it, wouldn't we be letting Earth and the Milky Way down? Duxing initially thought that since the rabbit could talk, it was definitely not edible. But after noticing Shiraishi's look, he chuckled and approached the rabbit just like Shiraishi. Brother Shiraishi, you're right, but just roasting it won't do. I think half roasting and half boiling is the best. Doraemon fainted because of it, so it's perfect to make soup for him to replenish his energy. 1194. All I could hear were Shiraishi and Nobita's sinister, villainous laughter. The rabbit trembled. Despite its stubbornness, it was actually quite afraid of dying. Don't eat me, I don't taste good. It really doesn't taste good. This is it, we're doomed. We're going to be eaten by the barbarians. Wowza. Nobita looked at the rabbit speechlessly. Calling us barbarians is really rude. You're all going to eat me, and you won't even let me teach you barbarians. You're the ones who are truly rude, you scoundrels. The rabbit said with great dissatisfaction. Nonsense, we song we're just joking with you 10 times. Nobita shrugged and said, what kind of horrible joke is this? You're all barbarians. The rabbit still keeps referring to the barbarians. Little rabbit, what are you saying? You suddenly ran into our house, took a bite out of a dorayaki and threw it on the ground, and even scared Doraemon so much that he fainted. We were just joking with you, and you can't even handle it. Shiraishi casually placed the rabbit on the ground and then pinched its cheek. The little rabbit seemed to realize that what it had done was wrong, and its mouth moved slightly. I was just hungry for too long, and that thing was so delicious that I accidentally dropped it on the ground. Oh, I see. Upon hearing this, Nobita sighed helplessly. It's just that Doraemon didn't even bother to find out more about the reason, and that's how it is. At this moment, Doraemon, still half asleep, woke up. He rubbed his head, looking around blankly. Then, suddenly realizing what was happening, he snapped back into battle mode, instantly pulling out the legendary sword, lightning bolt, and an air cannon from his four-dimensional treasure pouch. Holding one in each hand, he glared fiercely at his surroundings. Where's the rat? Where's the rat? Hey Doraemon, there are no mice, there are no mice. Nobita quickly stepped forward to stop Doraemon, who was fighting with thin air. Look, there it is, it doesn't look like a mouse, does it? What the hell, you actually called me a rat, you stinky cat.